Hello, and welcome back to the Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan, and today I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Wyatt,
Hello.
Alex,
Hello.
and Brett. I guess we're doing head shakes as the intro this time.
Hello.
As well as the Game
I
Awards
cannot.
nominees, because we got a bunch of Game Awards nominees to look at, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, the game industry has to answer for their sins. Because,
yes.
oh boy, we've had some spicy takes this week.
Mhm.
Mick Gordon's situation has more developments. We're not going to talk at length about this because Bethesda's statement largely boils down to nothing.
Yeah.
It's
I think it's
defending
clearly
the
not done
party,
yet.
but it's also they are not saying any proof of anything for legal reasons, which could mean 1,000 things. So we're just gonna leave that until any other important actual things happen with this. But it just is Bethesda and id Software and Mick Gordon are not on good terms right now. So
Yeah.
that's the big takeaway right now. Y'all know Pokemon.
I do
Boy,
know
do I.
Pokemon.
Wait,
Why do you
Pokey
mention
works?
that?
Pokey
the
works?
the Pokemains.
No. Okay, you're not at work. You're not at work. Wyatt. You're at home. You're at home.
Son.
You're having fun. Wyatt. Okay.
Son, put the tuna down.
All right. So the reason I'm bringing up Pokemon is I've been playing a little bit of it, not very much, just haven't had a lot of time, and a lot of other people I know are playing a lot more of it. Some of whom are already almost done with the game. But this era of Pokemon, this generation of Pokemon, has had a very interesting couple of initial impressions coming out because, oh my god, it got below an 8 on review scores. For like the first time in a long time, a Pokemon game has gotten relatively, not necessarily middling, but lower positive reviews. And these are almost entirely because, oh my lord, this game runs and looks really bad, while also being super cool in terms of like what it brings to Pokemon as a franchise. But man, there is something going on here
Yeah.
because I follow a person on Twitter who's
20 frames.
I'm gonna find this person's name so I can credit them properly. But there is an account, Delaney King at Delaney King Rocks on Twitter, who is a tech artist, character artist on a number of AAA games. She has put a very extensive tech review of the reasoning why Pokemon looks really bad and how to improve it. And it's really interesting to read. There's a long set of threads here going into like all the individual problems as to why they didn't do vertex painting a good way. Where, for people that don't know, vertex painting is you can have, when you have textures on the ground and like geometry on the ground, instead of using a texture for every single thing to denote what it looks like, you can have color values that kind of interpolate between the vertexes. That can be really powerful for terrain, and you can also add on textures to it so you get like a nice mix of things. But for whatever reason, they don't add the textures in Pokemon, so it's just a smooth interpolation between like green to brown for a road, which looks really weird. And just to make sure I wasn't going crazy and that this actually looked as bad as I thought it did, I went and booted up Morrowind
Oh God.
on my PC. Because Morrowind has the same... I don't know if it's vertex painting, because it's a much, much older game. I don't even know if that was a thing at the time. But it has the texture fading that you would want from this, which doesn't exist in the 2022 Pokemon game.
You know, a game that came 20 years later.
Bizarre. Just actually bizarre. And man, it's a shame because the game is actually pretty fun, but it just breaks. This is like cyberpunk level jank in terms of it breaking in the... There's like, I was walking around, I did the tutorial, and for the most part it performed fine in the tutorial, but there were some like bits where the frame rate would slow very slowly, kind of like what Sword and Shield did, but nothing too bad. Nothing that affected me enjoying the game. And then I got to the first like open section where you can go into the open world proper, and it was fine. Everywhere but one spot on the road looking in one direction, it would just stutter, and I'm talking like 2 frames a second.
Oh, God.
For the second that I'm in that spot. And when I'm moving the camera, I'm like, what is going on? This is
I've also seen a lot of stuff with the jumping animations for your rideable legendaries.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the fact
yeah,
that
they
you
didn't
can,
program a way for the back. You can back jump up terrain that you really shouldn't be able to. Because
and then also
they didn't test that.
going off of that you can get out of bounds really easily in the game.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You can
That's
clip
a-
under
can
the map.
also-
The first thing you
Um,
test in QA for like terrain bounds is if you move backwards, does it behave correctly? Because oftentimes it doesn't. You need to find that out to fix it. I guess they just didn't fix it.
I saw one where I think someone got on like a bike, and then his character model became really gigantic and like stretched out.
Yeah.
Giraffifying.
It looks a bit
Yeah.
like that Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 bug where like you get inside of the power armor, and then your guy just becomes this weird, like weirdly proportioned creature, and he's just kind of like walking around like this.
Yeah. It's just very strange because I think if this didn't have any tech issues, this would be a pretty universally loved Pokemon game.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Because the world is very good looking until you get close to anything. That's it kind of has, you can see that they were going for that like Studio Ghibli look, which the barest form of it is visible.
I think
barest form.
One of the non-performance complaints that I heard about it was there is no more character outfit customization anymore. You're stuck
I
in
haven't
the school
found
uniform.
any, but I'm also still very close to the tutorial. But there is way more character customization. There's like a full character
Yeah.
creator this time around. And to be honest, I get why the clothing customization isn't there if it is, because you're like a student. I don't agree with it and I don't like it, but this being a game made by Japanese developers set in a school, I can understand the logic that would lead to that decision, and I don't think it's like a malicious decision or anything. I think it was just they just didn't think it was important. Whether or not that's true, I think other people probably really wish it did stick around, but yeah. I think it's really, really funny that this is the current state of Pokemon, and some people have been blaming the Switch hardware. Go play Breath of the Wild or something, because that game looks and runs so much better.
That's the thing, is that it's kind of like a 50-50, where it's like, okay, yeah, you can't really blame the Switch because other games that run on it and are open world run well. However, all of those games were co-developed by the same group of people, and if only one group of people, Monolith Soft, knows how to make a game that big,
I mean, not
that
necessarily,
runs
because like The
relatively
Witcher
well.
3 looks pretty good on Switch and doesn't have a ton of issues.
How
Like,
does Doom
Doom runs fine.
Eternal
Panic
run on
Button
Switch?
has done
Yeah.
a bunch of good ports. I think that argument doesn't have
It is
a way to
harder
People who
to
port
do
to the
that on the
Switch.
Switch than it is on other consoles, and the Switch is old enough and underpowered
Yeah.
enough relative to the other consoles, where I still think that's a good enough
I-
argument.
and if you had
I
a
just
really,
find it really.
if you had a really good looking Pokemon game too, that argument makes more sense. But from everything we've seen, there's no excuse. Given how this release looks, there's no excuse for how bad it runs in comparison to like
Yeah.
especially other Panic Button ports. Like there's no excuse whatsoever.
Yeah,
it's very strange.
The most mind-boggling one for me is that if you have two Joy-Cons plugged in and you hold the stick forward on both of them, your character will run twice as fast. Because
That's
I literally don't understand. I've never heard of that. Like that's the type of like Rainbow Six Siege level glitch where I don't comprehend that. I don't know how that can happen.
You would have to like program that.
You'd have to
into the
do that on
game.
purpose,
No,
right?
what-
How do you accidentally do that?
What happened, because this is the thing that happens if you're developing a game in Unity and you use the controller and you don't do any modifications and just attach a move speed variable to your character and then set it to your stick. If you hold both sticks on two different controllers, that modifier, unless you cap it, will go to 2 because you have two sticks. Because unless you bound a controller input, they don't read the same way on every platform. So whatever their engine is doing is not capping that, and it's letting you plug two controllers in it. Bonkers. It's the kind of issue that like a QA department should have found super quickly, and they probably did. Like that's the thing I imagine is QA is very good at their jobs. They're gonna find the issues. Someone just made the call that this wasn't important to fix.
But where do the reports get lost? That they don't.
not even get lost. They might just not have had enough time to act upon
Yeah.
them.
Well, and that's another question because like I haven't played it personally. So my question is like, is the actual like gameplay and balancing like it is like how good is that if like they're missing in QA,
It's
they're
felt
missing
fine so
small
far.
things like.
But I think a lot of that is that Pokemon balance is mostly numerical and can be graphed out pretty easily. Because it's not that complicated of a system that you can't do a lot of paper balancing. So
Okay.
I wouldn't worry too much about balance because unless they did something really crazy, it's Pokemon balance. It's gonna feel like Pokemon. I will say the world is really big, like way bigger than I thought it would be. I think calling this an open world game is actually justified compared to like Sword and Shield, where you had so many limited areas. This time you've got like cave dungeony type things you can go into, and all sorts of cool areas that you can see. So
I thought we would need to be many years into the future to see a moment where people are actually clamoring for a game to go open world.
it's like Pokemon. It makes so much sense.
It
makes
does.
No,
so
it does.
much
It
sense.
does. I just think it's so funny because like we've talked about like Halo Infinite transition to open world, for instance, and in this case, everyone's like, "Please,
It really, I don't
make it
think open world
world."
is necessarily the problem. It's just give me a over-the-shoulder camera for Pokemon where I can run around with my partner Pokemon. That's really what I think people want. And the open world is a side effect of that, working really well with that design. But
yeah, and I'm not even saying that's like the issue with the game. I just think it's funny how like, and it seems to be working well for Pokemon too, and that's what people want, which is great. It's just funny that we're now in a yeah, and it seems like now it's just funny we're in a situation of like, God, please go open world, when like in every other case it's like, no, don't do that, stop it.
Yeah, I mean the suspicion I think a lot of people have, as to why the game is running so poorly is that they do not have a proper culling system. And which in games, culling is referring to how objects are out of sight are not rendered or not loaded so that they don't affect performance. Something here is going on with that because it's pretty clear that their culling setup is not working correctly, or it was not thought out well enough. A lot of that can be that there's a reason a lot of open world games have really big height differentials in areas, because if a mountain or a building hides a bunch of stuff from your view, you don't need to load that stuff, which means the game runs better in that area. So the fact that Pokemon doesn't really try for that is a little bit concerning. Because I have a feeling it's just they haven't developed an open world game before, and they didn't know these pitfalls, and now they've run into all of them. But for most companies, these are pitfalls that they ran into in 2010. Yeah. All right. Let's move on from the Pokemon train. We'll end up talking about this more, I'm sure. But the performance as of right now is really bad. Hopefully there are patches on the way, but you never know. You really never know with especially Japanese developers.
Yeah.
I mean, Sword and Shield got a good amount of support, but these are large issues. They are not small issues. Again, like a Cyberpunk scale comparison is not out of place here.
I agree.
It is real rough. All right.
Well, at least we know that Nintendo isn't going to be pulling it from the eShop anytime soon.
No,
unlike
they can't do
that.
Yeah. All right. Little known game franchise that I don't know if anyone else here has played, called Risk of Rain.
I've heard and watched.
Very fun.
I've played Risk of Rain too.
Risk of Rain has been historically under development by the Hoppo Games indie team. It has now been purchased by Gearbox.
Yeah.
So all future Risk of Rain 2 updates are handled now by Gearbox. That's the part that has me nervous. The rest of this I'm fine with, because Risk of Rain as an IP I don't think is that valuable.
No, not really.
The IP is not why people play the game, it's because of the gameplay. And Hoppo can do that in a different IP very easily. So I'm not concerned about Hoppo with this, because they're probably getting a lot of money from the sale. So I'd imagine this is the right move for them. But for Gearbox, I don't see the value of this. I think this is a really weird acquisition, especially because they're not acquiring the team. They're just getting the IP.
A year or so ago, didn't they say that they were like producing for Hoppo or whatever? So that's been like, people were already like,
they had a working relationship, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
This is just a strange situation.
It's weird. I wonder. I would imagine like the price must have been like handsome enough for the devs just be like, this is fine. We're okay with saying goodbye to this because at this point, let's face it. Like if you see something as by the Risk of Rain 2 devs, I would be like excited to see what it is. It's just that like they have that good of a reputation from like going from small projects to bigger ones that I just I'm excited to see what they do now that they are kind of forced to do something different. But at the same time, again, the best case scenario is that Gearbox does not touch Risk of Rain 2 and leaves it exactly how it is, so that they do not ruin a game that is already good. And that if it takes them 10 years to come out with Risk of Rain 3 and it's doo-doo feces, then that can be its own game that nobody has to touch.
Yeah. I suspect here what might be the play they're going for is releasing DLC for Risk of Rain 2, which already has a huge install base. And Gearbox's like Borderlands designers, I'm sure, could do some fun stuff with Risk of Rain 2, so I hope that's the direction they go in, and not we're gonna grind this franchise into a dust under the heel of
snort it through a dollar bill.
Gearbox. Yeah, I don't think that'll happen here, mostly because I think they know that this franchise is not that valuable in terms of people sticking around if the game gets bad. Like, if the game is bad, people are going to stop playing Risk of Rain. They're going to go back and play older versions of it with mods instead of the stuff that they produce. So I think they know there's an onus on them to get this right. At the same time, I just don't see the value here. This is a...
Yeah.
I'm sure they can prove me wrong.
I think they were under the assumption of like, people like this game, people like this franchise, we will now buy this franchise. But it's like you said, it's more about the gameplay is really good.
That's a very Western AAA way to think.
Well, what are we dealing with here?
Gearbox makes sense, but it doesn't translate to indie outside of very specific circumstances. Of like, I could see someone acquiring the IP of Hyperlight Drifter and that being a big deal, and then making like a 3D first person, not the first person, but like a 3D over the shoulder Hyperlight Drifter game. I could see that having some attachment, but Risk of Rain is just a weird one because they're already so different. There's no story to the IP. It doesn't have a very strong setting, so
yeah.
That is the thing, is that they are producing Hyperlight Breaker. And I gotta say, if Randy decides to get his slimy, grubby hands on that property any more than he already has them, I'm gonna be getting a little bit nervous.
Suspicious.
Don't touch that.
Oh, Randy.
Do not touch that. Randy, give them money. Don't touch it.
Oh, Randy.
Yep. All right. The only other, I think, big piece of news for this week so far is that Riot Games and Ubisoft have teamed up to work on something called the Zero Harm in Comms research project, which is an AI-driven solution to detect harmful behavior in game chat rooms. And curb some instances of things like bullying. I think League of Legends
Riot,
is certainly the franchise to do this with.
I was gonna say, and Riot, the people responsible for League of Legends.
And Ubisoft Rainbow Six Siege also has a very bad reputation in terms of community.
I would like to point our direction towards Brett's expression right now. Anyone that's listening to this podcast may not be able to see it, but his expression is hilarious, and it kind of sums up my reaction to this news perfectly.
It's like if Shinji's dad was pleased with himself.
There are levels to this that will likely not be truly seen for the next 10 years. But when this thing turns against us and starts only knowing like horrible, horrible slur-filled language, then the Riot community is to blame, and so is Rainbow Six Siege. This is such a weird... I understand like the thought process is like, this problem is too big for us. Let's just make a brain that can deal with it for us because it's just too much to deal with.
That's how you get racist AI.
How is it going to do that? I don't understand.
That's the thing with this. So this is not a thing that is being implemented into any games. This is a research initiative. So the way to treat this is this is a scientific project, essentially. That's it, not actually quote-unquote scientific, but this is a project to figure out ways to tackle this problem. It is not they are tackling the problem. So this is the pre-stage of any actual solution being deployed. It is them doing research into if this is a viable thing. And I get why, because I think time and time again, video gamers have proven that they can be truly vitriolic in the worst ways, and that they inundate customer service on every company with way too many things to ever react to. So they do, and that ends up it ends up being a huge problem of you can read reports from people who have been in like video game customer support and had to deal with these types of claims, and that it is like soul draining to the point where these people have such a high turnout rate, not because of like pay or anything, but because it is such a soul draining job to do, to constantly just read the worst of people all day and have to react to that. So I think a lot of this is just trying to find ways to minimize that. But then there's the problem of like, you really need a human element to be able to determine some forms of this. Like, there are obviously like keywords you can look for, but a lot of behavior does not use those, and it might just be more insidious. So you have to kind of have people actually read over these things.
Yeah.
Maybe you can train an AI to do it. So
It's like
and how well
can try to censor Kanye?
Well, and how well can an AI read like and understand the context of a situation? Because
Yeah,
when
that's
a lot of
definitely
these
gonna be the
words,
problem.
when a lot of these words are being said, oftentimes the most important like part of it is the context that they're said in, right? Because that can kind of change.
I have a
everything
feeling the purpose of this is not to solve those situations, but to solve the situations that are a step below that don't need the human input, just to reduce the sheer volume of work that customer service people have to deal with.
Sure, but
that would be
still,
the benefit
like,
to me.
the context of a conversation is so important, and I have no faith that an AI can like detect that properly.
yeah.
yet.
It's
I'm-
like, how do you tell between a serious comment and like a joke? Most people,
Yeah.
I would like,
You don't,
at
not in
least
text
at least
form.
playing Gundam Evolution in the past few days, like just I've been in many conversations in the all chat of just like the teams insulting each other, like using things from the show that if you just read, like if my mom walked into the room and read that there was going to be a 10-ton space rock thrown at my face to kill me in real life, then she might get a different interpretation than someone who's watched that. Okay, someone does that in the show, and it's funny because I know that someone, if someone puts like a clearly fake, like someone insults you and then you respond with a not real IP address that you did not actually take from them as a joke because that's the joke. Is the AI going to be like, oh, not funny, detected, this person will be banned forever? How does the
go to
AI know
jail.
if that's your actual IP address? Does it know your IP address to compare it to? Like, there's just so many levels. Like, how do you tell if it's like different
Will it
levels of
dox
issue?
you?
It's just so complicated. So I'm at least glad that this is like an experiment and not like a public thing that is just being like forced upon people. Because it's just so weird, and I don't
It's,
think as an industry we're really ready for that yet. As much as people may like deserve the consequences, sometimes it's too big brain for people right now.
When you look at it through the lens of this is Bully Hunters 2.0, doesn't it just seem like such a better prospect?
It's the next step.
The
Just
logical
getting rid of the
evolution.
people entirely.
God.
Just get the T1000 to hunt them down in real life. Start up Skynet.
I like Redditor.
that.
A Redditor comes by to your house and then is like goes through the whole like Kyle Reese spiel of the first movie. It does not feel. It does not think.
All right, let's jump into the more fun part of this episode.
Oh, you had a
I
theme.
guess.
That's right.
Quote unquote fun.
I guess.
Of going through the Game Awards nominees because they've been announced and we have some things to talk about. But first, we need to go into the esports zone. Brett, you are driving our list for this. You see these wonderful esports events?
Taking the wheel.
I think what we should do to rate these, because I don't know how many of us follow esports exactly. We should just rank them based on who we want to win, based on how cool the trophy looks.
Cool, the trophy.
I was just
I
about to
agree
say
with
that.
that.
The only
agree with
one
that.
I'm gonna vote for here is Evo because they show a cool stage and none of the others even show a stage.
You can
Well,
see the
well,
stage
now-
behind the second
now-
one on League of Legends.
Thank you. I was just about to mention.
And are we to
And on the
interpret this as
fourth.
the whole city? Is
Oh,
part of the stage?
oh, that's
That's
impressive.
a little strange. I don't know how they could do.
Are they playing on the river open air? That would be.
If you're
cool.
confused right now, there is a visual aspect to this episode that you can watch on the Twitch, YouTube, or other locations. And we're just going through the esports stuff because none of us follow esports to any major degree. The only one of these I regularly look at is Evo, because Evo is the big fighting games thing that covers every fighting game thing.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of them, I can't even tell you what some of these trophies, what games they are for.
I think the Invitational is Dota, right? I think
they call it the International though.
Or the
Dota's the International, but maybe the mid-season Invitational is Dota. I don't know. I feel like the major might be Call of Duty or Halo, but I don't know. I know Call of Duty sometimes has majors, but I think Halo has also used that term before. So who knows?
Would this be the Halo Infinite?
Alex, you're talking to the wrong crowd here.
Well, they've done esports stuff before because they occasionally have like esports themed skins and stuff for different teams. So they've
unfortunate.
My vote goes for the PGL major in Antwerp because I've always thought Antwerp was a funny thing to have a city be named. And unless we have any complaints or further discussion, I'm just going to go on to the next one because
we don't.
Antwerp. Listen, Antwerp sounds like a Twitch streamer name.
Esports events don't have any. There's nothing of value we can add to that conversation. Same with this. This one is even more obscure because I don't think any of us know these
I really
players
don't want to say the last guy's name. It sounds insulting.
A little bit.
That's just his name.
I know, but I, as a white person, don't feel comfortable saying it.
Like, we got more esports teams to look at. Again, we don't know.
Got a lot of repeats from the last thing.
I've heard of FaZe Clan.
Theme.
I've heard of FaZe Clan. That's about it.
I like Genji being a League of Legends team and not an Overwatch team. That's funny.
And best esports athlete. Faker's here for the umpteenth year in a row, and he's the only person that I recognize on this list. That's it. All right.
I know Simple because he was in
we're into the meat and potatoes.
Raid Shadow Legends commercial.
Of course, of best esports game. This is another weird one, just because that we didn't have any big esports game releases. They're all pretty old. It's like maybe Valorant is, I think, the newest thing here.
Yeah.
By a good degree. But yeah, our nominees: Counter-Strike, Go, Dota 2, League of Legends, Rocket League, Valorant. I mean, I have no problem with any of these. I don't know what I would add to this because I
haven't played a single one.
So this may shock you. The one game that I've spent the most amount of hours in out of all of these is Rocket League. I used to be pretty big into Rocket League with a friend of mine back in the day. So I think by default I'm just gonna give it to Rocket League. But like,
I think agree because that's the only one I've played.
Yeah.
The one to me, the only thing I know this year about esports is that League of Legends broke its viewership records again. I have a feeling that will probably win just based on the viewership record stuff. Because it's always had the most viewership of pretty much any esport. I don't know about Valorant though. Valorant might be up there as well. I just don't know enough about it. And fighting games are probably never going to be in this esports category because they're single person teams generally and not team-based games. When really this is like a team-based category. I think very few people would call fighting game competitions esports. All right, next category. Now we're into the meat and potatoes.
Now
16.
This recognizing an announced game that has demonstrably illustrated potential to push the gaming medium forward.
And
I think if we're just going off that alone, not even most anticipated for me, because I'm around. I'm
we
not
should
like
say
dying.
the nominees first for people that are just listening.
We have Final Fantasy 16, Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil 4's remake, Starfield, and Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild 2.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what they're going for, I think it's going to be Starfield.
Really?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I would say just ambition-wise.
Yeah, demonstrably pushing the gaming medium forward.
Ambition-wise, what they want to do, I'd say that would push it through. What they actually end up shipping, I think, is going to be very different.
This is about potential, not about.
It's about potential.
If it's about potential, I probably would say Final Fantasy 16 if I follow that further and knew any more of it. But Starfield.
Yeah, this is actually, I think this one has some decent competition in that
Mhm.
Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is obviously very highly anticipated.
Yes.
I don't know that nothing has shown me that it's pushing the games industry forward
It's
yet.
not going to add anything.
I think it's going to be an excellent
groundbreaking
game,
mechanically.
but
None of these
I
look
think
like going
the
to be
wording
like
that they have
terrible or
used
anything.
is a little bit more specific.
It is
Yeah.
strange that the wording is weird to me because it's like a highly anticipated hyped game doesn't have to be something that pushes the medium forward. It's
Mhm.
like anticipation is just what people are looking forward to playing.
So
the most, I feel like.
that's what I would take this as, is what people are looking forward to most, and I have a feeling that's what the award is going to go to.
Oh yeah. It's also, to me, like the Game Awards. Do you really think you are the bar that clears what is the most demonstrably illustrating
I mean, I
potential
do
to
think
push
they
the medium
have.
forward?
Yeah, I think of anticipated games, they have a good selection here. I think you have a nice pick of things. The only thing I think that might be an odd duck out is Resident Evil 4, in that it's a
A little
remake. Even though that game is highly anticipated, I don't think it's going to push anything forward compared
in my
to
opinion,
2 and 3.
You have all these highly anticipated games that all have big fan bases, and then you have Hogwarts Legacy. What is I feel like
I think
of all the games
this is a
here,
conversation we have to have now because you've done this.
Oh god.
Boy.
Hogwarts Legacy, the audience for that game is not necessarily core gamers. It is both gamers who like Hogwarts and grew up with Harry Potter stuff, as well as all the tons and tons of people who love Harry Potter and maybe don't play games. That's why this game exists, right? Is to get both of those groups.
This game is marketed towards every single person who in a dating profile says, "Oh, I'm a Hufflepuff."
Yeah,
Yes.
all those people want it.
Yes.
That's why this game is here. And honestly, we talked about Hogwarts Legacy's gameplay showcase a little bit, way back when, and they had more gameplay trailers recently. And to be honest, it looks pretty good. I wouldn't say it looks better than anything else on this list, but it looks good enough. Yeah,
it's just of all the ones here, it's gotten the most like in terms of its own hype train. It has the least amount of momentum going. Just
I don't know that that's
everyone's...
true. I think that's only in our circles, not in the wider gaming world. That's one of those games that I think, unless you're really tuned into Hogwarts stuff, you're not going to be following. And if you are, this is now the most important game release of the last 20 years.
I think, well, also,
between, really.
I think also, well, talking about, moving the gaming medium forward, this has some bad potential to possibly normalize a misuse of waiting timers in single player games.
I doubt that. I highly doubt that. We've had plenty of games that have used these mechanics before. I think until we know what this game is actually like, judging it in this way is unfair. And I don't think any good faith arguments can be made about this game. Aside from the fact of like, hey, none of us agree with J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. Let that always
I'm gonna
be
make
stated.
that hard line right here. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that people cannot be excited for a Hogwarts game. Personally, I'm looking much more forward to everything else on the list.
Yeah.
I think that's a good boiling down of the thing. But my prediction to win this, I think, is probably Starfield, just because it's a Bethesda game, and Bethesda proper hasn't released a big game since Fallout 76. And I think we all know how that went.
Yeah, and I think a good way to look at this too is that we've gotten both from like Tears of the Kingdom and from Starfield. We've gotten like gameplay reveals this year, right? But not only was Starfield's, I think it was sooner, right? No, Breath of the Wild was sooner,
but much shorter.
But much shorter, and I think it's also a known entity, right? It's a sequel to Breath of the Wild. I think we're going to know a lot going into it, whereas Starfield is a completely new IP, and I think that alone gives it a lot more like hype factor.
I also think this is a situation where hardware comes into play.
Yes, for sure.
I think with there being these new gen consoles here, I don't think a game for the Nintendo Switch is competing on the same level right now, unless there is like some crazy motion stuff they're doing or something really different. As of right now, we have not seen anything like that for Tears of the Kingdom. and we have not seen any indication of stronger hardware coming out. And I think with Pokemon just having this rough launch, worries about the state of the Switch in terms of if it will run this game well are probably very valid. So,
and I mean, even without the most recent Pokemon, like, weren't you having issues with running a Bayonetta 3, Ryan, on your Switch?
yeah, but that's a Bayonetta 3. Bayonetta 3 also just kind of tries to punch above its pay grade.
Okay.
And also Bayonetta 3 targets 60 FPS, not 30. So
Wow.
running poorly in Bayonetta 3 is running at like a 45, not at like a low.
I actually didn't
frame
know
rate.
that. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah, all the Bayonetta games on
Yeah,
Switch are 60
seriously.
FPS.
Wow.
And they generally run very well. Even Bayonetta 3, I think, largely runs totally fine. It just looks worse because they clearly had to make a lot of concessions to get it to run that well.
I really hope Starfield lives up to what Todd Howard wants it to be.
I
Even
hope
just a little bit,
Starfield
right?
is half as good as Todd Howard wants it to be, because then I'll be happy. I think that's where a lot of people are going to land with Starfield. And yeah, I think the big two contenders for this, the two that I would put at the top of the list, are Starfield and Final Fantasy 16, because both are quote unquote returns to form from their respective
And hopefully
developers.
redemption stories too, if you
Yeah.
take into consideration
Yeah,
15
yeah.
and 76.
Exactly. So I think those are the games that are highly anticipated in the wider world. Starfield for sure is what I would personally give this to, even though I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan and will probably like that game more. The existence of multiple 8+ hour long Skyrim analyses coming out every year points to how
Telling.
excited people are for
I
Bethesda
am
things.
6 hours and 45 minutes into the 11-hour video.
Man, I
for,
just want more first-person games that are like not horror games. As much
Yeah,
as I can enjoy horror
genuinely.
games.
Or multiplayer shooters.
Yeah, give me some
Yes,
single-player
yeah.
first-person games, please, because they're great when they come out. All right, moving on. Unless anyone else has something to say about this category.
Best adaptation. Ooh.
All right, well, I think we got
Well,
Uncharted,
3 of them are just kind of out of the question. 2 of them
Sonic
are.
the Hedgehog 2, the Cuphead show, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and Arcane League of Legends. I think there's very little competition in this category.
Yeah, I think Edge Runners probably has it just in terms of like popularity.
I would
alone.
actually give this to Arcane.
I was going to say
Oh, really?
Arcane.
No, I was gonna say Arcane. Yeah,
Wow, okay.
Because I think
I haven't heard
Arcane
people talk about that
succeeded
as much lately.
because it was much earlier in the year, but I think Arcane succeeded at grabbing non-video game people way more.
Mm.
Yeah.
Edge Runners has revitalized Cyberpunk for sure, but I don't think it grabbed the attention of all the average Joes as much as Arcane
Sure.
did. And Arcane is also just excellent. There's very little wrong with that show, aside from the fact that like it needs another season to resolve the plot lines.
I wonder when it'll come.
They're working on it, so hopefully sometime in
It
the
better
next
be.
year and a half or so.
Netflix, listen to me. I'm talking directly to you right now. I don't want you to cancel it anytime
They're-
soon.
Wyatt,
I also
they're
don't. I
going
also
to.
let me finish. I also don't want you to mess with it like you did with The Witcher and you scared off Henry Cavill. All right, you let these people do what they want to do. Okay, don't you mess this up.
You got one chance,
Moving on.
Netflix.
Why? You know they're gonna cancel it after the second season, or at least tank the quality.
I think
so
most of the
hard.
money for the show is not coming from Netflix, though. I think the show is largely funded by Riot. I could be wrong about that, the split of it, but Riot makes an ungodly amount of money, and so it wouldn't surprise
the
me if
writers
they are
are with
funding.
Wyatt. The writers are with Riot too, right? If the
I believe
writers
this
are
is
with
entirely
Netflix,
like a Riot-led production.
okay.
And then
To my
Netflix
knowledge,
is
the-
just
The
distribution
platform.
essentially.
I think that I'm pretty sure the studio Fortiche that opened for this show is made up of a lot of Riot people and not just like a random collection of showrunners and whatnot. It is actually a production company that was designed to take this on.
God, I need to watch Arcane again.
Notice this too. 3 out of the 5 entries on this list are all Netflix shows. I've said
Yeah.
this for a while. Netflix is doing some very dumb things, and they've been doing it for a while. But when it comes to video game adaptations, they've been kind of killing it.
hitting
They've
really
been
well.
killing it recently. And I'll
They're
also say
sticking
that
fast.
I also say that with the Cuphead show, I think it is not a show for me in like any way. I bounced off of it very hard, but I think fans of Cuphead will like it because I think it it definitely plays to like fans of that game.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it fits it very well. It's just not something that stylistically for me works
Not up your alley.
at all. My question is, why is Uncharted here?
I think it's
Why-
legitimately because that
listen,
was the fifth thing.
You listen.
Yeah.
I know you need a fifth slot. There has to be something else that you can fill up that fifth slot.
I don't
other
think
than
there is
Uncharted.
one.
This
It's slim pickings.
don't even get me started on this garbage.
They
I can't
had
take it.
to appease Tom Holland. Tom Holland just really wanted to be able to go to the Game Awards.
Ugh.
And he will be here to announce the victory of a different adaptation than his own.
Well, listen. I mean, it's not like the Game Awards have ever just had a celebrity come on that has nothing to do with literally any. Oh,
Yeah, all the
Always- they
time.
always do
Every
that.
time.
they
Right?
always do that.
We gotta move on so we could talk about the actual video games in this
The
video
important
game show.
thing.
Please. Yay, here we go.
One
Here
of
they
the stronger
are.
categories, Brett.
Best indie debut indie. Oh,
My
boy.
problems arise
Vampire
already.
Survive. Ooh.
Because there's I don't know what Norco is.
I
I don't know
haven't
what
seen
Norco is,
anything about
and some of the categories are known to have had 6, and this is the only indie category.
Yeah, I agree with the only indie category complaint, but I do think this is the selection of games for best indie debut is Neon White, Norco, Stray, Tunic, and Vampire Survivors, which I think are all very good picks for this.
Yes.
Mhm.
agreed.
What's Neon White? I haven't played that at all or heard of it.
We've talked about
It's
this game a
a-
lot, Alex.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a speed running FPS game. They're
Yeah,
using
where you have like
your
guns that are
cards.
cards, and you can either
Yeah.
use the gun or use it for a cool parkour ability.
There's like social link stuff in it.
And it
Steve
is
Blum voices
very
the
good.
character.
That's the other thing to add to it. It's a wacky idea that's also just very well received. I think this is a competitive category.
Yeah.
I could see
Yeah,
this
there's a
going to
bunch
pretty
that
much
could be
anything
top.
on
I
here.
have to root for Tunic because it's the one I'm most familiar with, and I think Tunic just does quite a few special things.
I think Tunic
or
has the
it
best
teases.
chance of winning.
I
Aside,
vote for
maybe
Tunic.
next to Stray,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to get in the headspace of games
Jeff.
journalists of Jeff Keighley up on the stage. With his picks.
if it's games journalists, Stray will win because of the story.
I don't know though, because
I-
I think games journalists are going to be super split on Stray. You're going to have a really vocal amount of people that love it, and then you're going to have the grumbly group of jaded gamers who don't like it because it didn't do anything new, and that they're going to clash too hard for Stray to
But it
win.
was fun and it was a good story. Oh my god.
Yeah, it is. I
Not
wouldn't be
allowed.
upset if it won, but I don't think it will.
I
Um,
think every year, and this is not speaking to the quality of any of them, especially not the quality of the Hades, which is my justification for saying this. Every year there is a Hades in the Game Awards, which is this is the indie game, and this is the indie game, and it will be in all the other categories that all the indie games aren't, because it's
Yeah.
just so good that it can be the indie game. And Tunic is this year's the indie game, if I remember correctly from the other
and
categories
Stray
that come
to
after
a
this.
lesser degree.
Strays in
think.
some. I think it's in like sound or something.
Well,
if I
it's in
remember
it's in
correctly.
Stray's
Game
in
of
there
the
because
Year,
it looks really good.
isn't it?
Yeah, Stray I think is in Game of
Yeah.
the Year.
Wow.
Yeah, which is we'll get to that.
Weird.
Yeah, we'll get into it. I actually
I will say,
Dark
Brett, in a
Horse in
way-
this.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'll get to it.
I will
afterwards.
say, Brett, to that, it's kind of a compliment to that game where it's like, this is so good that it is representing an entire category. Whether it should or shouldn't is a
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
separate topic, but it is a compliment to, whatever game it is that it is, there's a reason that they're like, this is the indie game. Because I do agree with you. It's like,
Mhm.
this is so good that it represents all indie games. I don't think that's a particularly good practice to have, but it is a compliment to whatever game that is.
It's the best thing that the Game Awards can do when they just want to use the same games for every category over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dark horse in this, even though I haven't played it yet, but I have it has been very high on my list for a while, which is Norco. Norco is a point and click set in Louisiana, which is big points for me because it's just a underutilized setting of like Louisiana swamplands, but it's also sci-fi. So sci-fi swamp, And a point-and-click text-based adventure making it into any game award show is astounding.
Yeah.
That's a high praise. I also think Vampire Survivors is another... I don't know if I would call it the underdog, because it is probably one of the most popular out of all the games on here.
Yeah.
It is also very good, and it's only $5. So I think a lot of people will have played this, and a lot of people have spent a lot of time on this, but it's not artsy. And I think for a game award show, the lack of artsiness means either Tunic or Stray is going to go away with this.
Well, especially for an indie game title, if there's no amount of artsiness in it in your indie category,
because it either needs to be so good that it's a Hades situation of like nothing else can compare to it that year, or it has to be artsy to a level that your games journalists are going to really like it. Maybe Neon White is that. I haven't played. Neon White is the only one of these that I haven't played or really gotten a lot of info on, even though it is on the list, because Annapurna is a big seal of approval.
Yes.
But yeah, I think my bet here would be on Tunic, because Cute Fox Lad, as well as it just having really interesting game mechanics.
Cute Fox Lad, one of the coolest, slightly meta game mechanics I've ever seen in a good
gorgeous
few
manual.
years.
All right,
and it's
gorgeous everything. It's just a
your
gorgeous
classic.
game.
One guy made it over a really long period of time,
yeah.
which I think probably
peak indie.
Content creator
of the year.
I know one of these people.
I know one of these
I know
people
two of
because one
them.
of them is actively insane.
I do think there is one person in this list that I think should take this home. I don't know anyone else in this list aside from having heard their names before.
We have Carl Jacobs. We have Ludwig, friend of Germa, Nibelion, Nobrew, and QT Cinderella. I feel like I just spoke like a sentence in a different language.
Nonsense.
The only two I can speak for are Ludwig and Nibelion. I personally, in terms of like actual genuine service to the people that are going to be the same demographic that are watching the Game Awards, it's probably Nibelion.
100%.
He doesn't exist anymore.
So I think that's why he's taking this.
Looking at this, I didn't recognize him at first.
He's taking this.
Wait, what happened with Nibelion?
He got rid of his account. He doesn't want to do it anymore.
So Nibelion, however you'd say his name, is a Twitter user for a long time that has since very recently decided to quit, who did the dewest of diligence in games journalism and basically sourced every single major games thing. He's a source that tons of outlets actually pulled from, and he put up a Patreon because he was like, I can't continue dedicating time to this without making some financial stake for it, which did not go well. People were not willing to pay for it, so he was like, all right, I can't keep it up, I have to stop. So he put it up, hung up his coat, and has left the Twitterverse. And man, please, someone in games journalism, give this man a job. My God,
please, dear God,
he was so good, such a good boy, and getting all this news.
I do want to give a special mention to Ludwig. I'm not even gonna say that I'm a fan of him, but he did the most insane thing I've ever seen on Twitch before. This crazy person, this lunatic, decided to do a stream where the stream will not end. Like, basically, every time he gets a like, it adds another like 5 minutes onto his stream or whatever it was, and the stream kept going for like weeks. It was months. Like, it was like to the point where he when he would sleep, the stream was just him sleeping because it had to keep going.
Because he's part of that same like Germa friend group where like all those guys are just like weirdly experimental with what they can do on Twitch while still being like really funny and like also playing games like a normal person.
Let's see.
It's fun.
This is not throwing any shade at anyone else on this list. We were just not the target demographic.
No, yeah, I have no idea who they are. I've never heard of
I don't
them
think
before.
any of us know of any of the other people on here.
See, I think I like Carl Jacobs. Look at him. He's obviously a fan of mini golf.
Yeah, he's got like a mini golfer's pose on. I've heard QT Cinderella's name like twice on a Twitch stream at some point.
Is she related
but I
to
don't know
Ludwig
what
at
she
all?
does. I have no idea. I don't follow Twitch streams.
So I looked it up. That stream lasted 31 days.
my
Impressive.
god!
Oh my
That's
God.
crazy.
And he just had to just live his life while streaming because anytime someone was like sub or liked or whatever, it would add time onto it. So I
That's
almost want to give it to
dedication.
him just because that's pure
I
insanity.
mean,
Yeah,
I don't think he's the
stream-
first person to have done that, unless it was him, and this is a while back. Because there's been a few times where people have done streams like that. There's definitely
That
been more than
stream-
one. Because I know there's a Final Fantasy YouTuber who did the same thing, where he had to like eat eggs every day until he ate an entire inventory of
did-
eggs in Final
he
Fantasy,
did-
and that took
Oh
like a
my
full
God.
week and a half or something.
He did because I'm looking at all the info because he did break the all-time sub record
I mean, hey, that's an
by
achievement.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an achievement.
All right,
And just,
well,
like,
let's
dedicating-
get out of the
Ugh,
content creators
anyway.
so we can talk about games.
Anyway.
We got a lot of
Games,
categories to go through.
Best multiplayer.
Best multiplayer.
Wow.
What a
We
weird
have
category.
Call of
There
Duty,
are
Modern
options
Warfare
here.
2.
See, that's what I said too, and then I was like, wait a minute, there really weren't that many other games that I would put in this that released this year. So I don't know if I don't think I would say this is a bad category this year compared to other years where there were a lot more options.
We must
Yeah.
tell the people what are there for people who do not have eyes. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Multiverses, Overwatch 2, Splatoon 3, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Which I remember that game coming out, and I have not heard a single thing about. I didn't know it was multiplayer.
It's very
I'm
good.
really happy to see that there is only one first-person military shooter on
There's
the
only
list.
one that came out this year, I think.
That's yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Did Battlefield 2042 come out this year? I hope not.
I'm
They
trying
made a
to forget that game
2042nd
exists.
Battlefield game? They don't have that. They stopped at 5, dude.
Oh,
What are
we
you talking
don't
about?
keep talking about that.
2042. They skipped a lot of sequels there.
I don't begrudge any of the games on this list. I think my personal pick for this would probably be Shredder's Revenge, just because it's such an oddball.
Oh.
I just want to
into
see it win
this.
and see people be mad because of
Yeah.
sheer confusion of why it's there.
So
I'd probably go with Splatoon 3, and I haven't played it. I've played none of the games on this list at all.
So I've played 3 of the games on this list. I've played Modern Warfare 2, I've played Overwatch 2, and I've played a very small amount of Multiverses. So I'm just gonna get that out of here.
Yeah, we bounced off of Multiverses pretty quick.
Yes.
Oh, is it
so-
not that good?
No, it's fine. It's just I think if you've played a lot of Smash, like Wyatt and I have.
If you want to play Smash and you don't have a Switch, this is a good option. Or if you want to play a Smash type game online, because Smash's online sucks,
Yeah, it's not
this
good.
is also a good option. If you want to beat up Shaggy as Batman, you can do that. Go for it.
But you're also gonna then run into the free to play problem, and I think at that point most people are gonna bounce off of it.
And you know what?
because
Even more than that, you're gonna run into some real wonky hitboxes.
Well,
wonky
Wyatt, I
hitboxes,
wanna
weird
go-
decisions. It's
I
fine.
want to go just a little bit further than that. If you want to beat up Arya Stark as Vilma, you play Multiverses.
You can do that. So really for me it's between Modern Warfare 2 and Overwatch 2 because I've been on record as saying that Overwatch 2 is not a bad video game. I think a lot of the rebalancing that was done for it was actually quite good. And I think it's like balance-wise, it's probably in the best state that Overwatch has been in a very long time. I've had a 5 stack that I've played on and off with consistently, and it's so much fun once you're in that scenario. Even if you're playing solo, it can still be a lot of fun. Modern Warfare 2 is also really, really good. Like,
Brett, is there
for-
a subtitle for what qualifies the games to be in this list, or is it just
It
multiplayer?
doesn't matter. Outstanding
Yeah,
online
co-op and massively
multiplayer gameplay
multiplayer.
and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of
Mm.
game genre or platform.
I'm waiting for Brett to ask why Gundam Evolution.
I know why
is
it's
on
not here because this wasn't made by me. But there isn't the most obvious choice for me is probably Splatoon 3 because the fan base for that is crazy and it came out and
Yeah.
I don't think there's any genuine problems with that game.
I
that
think
game just came
that's
out
what would take
and
it
is
just for the
good.
sheer lack of any
Yeah.
issues.
because we still haven't had our Call of Duty discussion live on the podcast yet. But I 50% disagree with Wyatt saying that it's a good game, but they just didn't have another thing to put here, and they kind of had to. I don't think it's bad enough to not be nominated for anything, but I have too many problems with it, and it's the only one here that I've played and will play. So that's it. That's all.
Are you telling me you're not going to be a competitive Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge player?
What is that game even on?
It's on Game Pass. You can play it on Game Pass.
Huh.
I don't even know what it looks like.
It's a beat 'em up.
Turtles are there.
It's really good.
I'm glad. It's just weird. It's such a strange pick. But no, yeah, I know why Gundam has genuine actual problems. Less than I think Overwatch 2 does in terms of what people have said
that's
about both.
that's what I was
but-
about to say. Like, no matter how I feel about it, the general like reception to Overwatch 2 has been far more negative than Gundam Evolution, it seems like. So I'm just kind of shocked. And it got a good enough amount of press, I feel like. So I don't understand why it's here.
I think.
Not like,
Hey, obligatory. This is where I have to say I work at Blizzard. Qualifying statement for the Gundam Evolution thing. I think Gundam Evolution didn't get a lot of bad press, partly because it was not played by nearly as many people.
Yes,
that's a big qualifier. Because first week of that game, I think Brett and I were having the best time of our lives.
Mhm.
But there are some big issues with balance and not balance,
Namely,
but like
the
progression
existence of
and the $1,000 Char Zaku 2
Oh,
skin.
yeah.
Not $1,000. It's just a lot.
No,
of
I'm sorry,
things.
Brett. It's even
You
worse
can't-
because it's 1,000 of the points that you get from loot boxes
Yes.
repeats, so it could be even
Yeah.
more than 1,000.
Which you can't. It's just the currency situation is terrible. Which they've said in the most recent little like mini almost Nintendo Direct thing that they're like addressing it, but it wasn't long enough for them to say how they were addressing it.
Yeah,
So
but I
at
think
least
that
they
the
know
real
it's a
reason that's
problem.
probably not here is it didn't have a hype train. There was very little marketing power behind that because I think they knew people that are going to play Gundam Overwatch are people that want to play Gundam Overwatch. It's not going to be a wider reach than that. Yeah, I think my honest prediction for this is probably Splatoon 3, just because it is, from what I've played, because I've actually played every game on this list. I think Splatoon 3 is just such a different type of multiplayer shooter that you don't get often, and it also is a non-violent shooter, which is a hugely difficult thing to do that I really appreciate. And I think a lot of critics will also appreciate that, just as a different approach to this multiplayer game style. And rounds are 3 minutes long. Ooh, you can get so many Splatoon matches in. It's great.
yeah, it's got that like one more match.
And generally just a really good community around Splatoon. Splatoon has like a
community
very,
especially.
very large community and surprisingly non-toxic for a competitive game. All right. Any other thoughts on these games?
I
I
love
have a
looking at all
thought,
the
but
furry
not.
artists in Splatoon
I have a
3.
thought, but not about these games. I noticed, Brett. I think you actually are signed into a profile on the Game Awards here.
Yes.
I did not see that.
I
did not expect that from you.
B. I don't know why it's there. It's probably from last year because it would have shown if I voted for this year and I did not. Probably from last year.
Yeah, that means, this just means Brett can vote if he wants to while he's going through this, and we can judge him
I
for his
guess.
votes.
I won't. Maybe not until later. We'll see.
Here we go. Everyone's
right,
favorite
guys.
category of best sports racing, and there is,
Well.
to me, a huge omission here. This is the one year where I think there's a huge omission to this category, because normally there's not that many games that release here.
Yeah.
Rollerdrome.
Oh my God,
Oh,
you're right.
yeah.
Rollerdrome, I think
You're
the
right.
reason it's not here is because it is, for some reason, not counted as sports racing. So I'm very surprised it wasn't in the indie category, although I don't know if it's a debut indie. I don't think it is. I would have put it in this category because it is a sports-themed game with a lot of sports game mechanics. The only difference is it has guns. This is where I want to throw it. Because otherwise, I don't know what this is going to go to. This is a bonkers list of games that are all not super well received.
Yeah,
Aside from Ollie Ollie
who
World.
cares.
Ollie Ollie, I think, was pretty
I was
well
gonna say,
received.
if I had to pick one of them, I'd say Ollie Ollie World because I do not like yearly releases.
Because the weird thing with Gran Turismo 7 is it's a really good racing game that just has the strangest of decision-making things around how it was designed and balanced that just really make you wonder what was going on in their heads. So, yeah, this is a situation where there's no Forza Horizon this year, so I don't know what's going to win.
Yeah.
There's no Microsoft
really
racing
care.
game. I can guarantee you it's probably not going to be NBA or FIFA. So.
Nope.
I don't know if F122 is good. Codemasters sometimes makes good games. Ollie Ollie, I know is good, but I don't know if reviewers will latch onto it for this category as much as they would
Yeah.
a proper like AAA sports racing game. That's it. That's the discussion. I haven't heard as many bad things about FIFA and NBA this year as I have in past years. But...
or strategy game.
All right.
This is such a bizarre category.
Here's my other category. This is my other category here.
Yes.
Sim strategy. This is a really good selection of games. I'm really happy with the games that they chose. I think this year the category being together makes sense because there weren't that many that are high-profile releases. I think you'd be reaching to even pull a sixth into here. You could, but the ones that I would put up for that sixth spot, most of them are early access right now. So I wouldn't even pull that. Although I do think Dune Spice Wars is early access, which is weird to me that it's here.
Came out yet.
It's out, but it's early access, so I don't know that I would include that in the list here. I think that's probably why it's not going to take this if it is even in contention, because I think there's a very clear winner for this one. To anyone that is following strategy games, which is Total War Warhammer 3.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Immortal Empires campaign, which is a mega campaign that spans every single class or like set of races and all their lords and whatnot from every Total War Warhammer game, which leads to a map that is like I think the biggest strategy map that has ever existed. I wouldn't hesitate saying that is what it is, especially a designed map with unique areas. It's got some like 300 settlements to conquer, somewhere around that number, and then you have like 80 something different legendary characters to play as. I think that's gonna take it in a sweep, would be my bet. The only other serious contenders here to me are Victoria 3 and Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I think are also both contenders.
Mario and Rabbids was received like pretty well from what I understand.
Yeah, it was received well. Victoria 3 has also been received very well and is definitely the hard strategy game here. It is like a grand strategy simulation style game, which is very good from what I've heard, and Paradox always does a good job at them. But I don't know that any critics will have played Victoria 3, so I think if Victoria 3 wins, it is going to be because critics looked at the idea of Victoria 3 went, that's really cool, and it wins because of that. Whereas I think Total War Warhammer 3 will have a lot of people that have actually played it. So that's why I think it will go to that. Mario and Rabbids, I think in this group of games, does not look as good as it could.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's next to a bunch of like strategy greats. And it is kind of it's the layman strategy game, which is like the strategy game you play if you don't actually like strategy games. And I don't know if that winning a strategy category is really something that would be good.
Think of the game reviewers, Ryan.
That's what I am. I do think there's a legitimate chance it wins because of that. But at the same time, I really think the pick here is Warhammer 3 because it has done such a phenomenal job of creating a incredibly unique strategy experience that I don't think will ever be repeated for many, many years. So I think this is the opportunity to give Total War Warhammer 3 a shake. It's earned it. Any other thoughts on this category? I don't think so, because I don't think anyone else plays any of these games.
Warhammer 3. I've watched you play Warhammer 3, and I'd vote for it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Best family.
Oh, it's the Nintendo category.
It is.
No, I was about to say we should rename this Best Nintendo Game of the Year.
Yeah.
There are some good picks here, though.
Yeah,
genuinely. You got Kirby Forgotten Land, you got the new Lego Star Wars game, you got Mario and Rabbids again, you got Nintendo Switch Sports, and you got Splatoon 3 again. I feel like if Splatoon 3 doesn't win the multiplayer category, it'll win this, because like you said, they did the difficult thing of making a shooter game that is fun while being completely innocent. Pretty much. The
only thing I think you can completely write off here is Nintendo Switch Sports. I don't think has any chance of taking this.
People don't even like it as much as
what did they do to the Mii's?
They overcomplicated them. They made the mistake of making them not silly little like totem people.
Silly little totem people is why they worked.
Exactly.
Getting rid of that is not a good decision. But all right. We do need to speed through some of these categories. I think with this one, Kirby and Lego Star Wars are probably the two biggest, aside from Splatoon. I think if Splatoon wins shooter, it's not going to win this. If it doesn't win shooter, I think it might win this. So That's the throw up there. But I think Skywalker Saga and Kirby and the Forgotten Land are our two big heavy hitters here.
Yeah.
I think either of them could take it, and I'd be very happy. I've played both; they're very good.
Yeah.
I think the only advantage Star Wars has is that it's on more platforms. So maybe that'll.
That's true.
And it's I don't know if Forgotten Land is co-op, but Lego Star Wars does have co-op. It is. Okay.
Yeah, it's not quite as in depth as Lego Star Wars co-op, but it does exist. So I'd be happy with either. I also think Mario Rabbids has a chance here, but I would put it under the other two. Just because it's a strategy game, and this family game tends to be very accessible to kids. So I would lean towards Lego Star Wars or Kirby.
Sure.
I assume that's all we have to say about that.
Yeah. Woo!
Best
Another
fighting.
Ryan category.
I know.
All
I'll say is that I've heard people be very weirded out that DNF Duel is here. Because I've heard from friends that are playing it while they were playing it that there's a lot of problems with the DNF Duel, and it might just be an issue of, well, it's a fighting game that came out this year and we needed 5.
Yeah, I think the proof, the big thing here is that they ran out of fighting games because there were not that many that came out this year, especially not high profile games. Your nominees now are DNF Duel, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, All-Star Battle R, King of Fighters 15, Multiversus, and Sifu. I think Sifu's going to win this unquestioningly because it is the best game on this list.
I really enjoy. I like Sifu to win, but I feel like a close second for me would have been All-Star Battle because I'm a JoJo fan, but I've heard that there's been a lot of technical issues with the game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to picking All-Star Battle up if it goes on sale soon because it's not a new fighting game. It is quote unquote new, but it's a remake of an older fighting game, which is one of the well-received JoJo's fighting games
with a pretty good amount of new content though.
It's got a bunch of new characters. Everything I've heard about it is very good. King of Fighters 15, I believe, has also been received extremely well by people that play King of Fighters, which is a relatively small group of people.
Pretty small, yeah.
Which is why I think even if it's very good, I don't see King of Fighters winning because of the fact that it's just a relatively small install base for this franchise. Could prove me wrong. I do absolutely believe it could prove me wrong, and I'd be totally happy with that because I like King of Fighters a lot. Multiversus, I don't think it's competing with any of these on any real level. It's an easy, accessible fighting game, but it is not really a thing. Now, Sifu, the reason I think Sifu's going to win, because I do think unequivocally it is the best game on this list. It's extremely well designed. Slowclap did a phenomenal job. It's not a fighting game.
The same way that anything else on this list is.
Not beat 'em up, right?
Actually, Brett, scroll up a little bit so I can read this blurb here. I want to see if they justify this. So this game designed primarily around head-to-head combat.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay.
Because when you say best fighting game, when you say best fighting game,
it's a single-player game.
When you say best fighting game, everyone expects you to mean PvP, player versus player, one-on-one fighting game.
Fisticuffs.
Sifu is amazing, very good. One of my favorite games of this year. Does not fit this category at all. I do think it's still going to win. To be honest, I won't be salty because I don't think there is like a gold star fighting game this year.
I was gonna say, I also think it's not. If it wins, it's not a bad outcome. Like if the kid's first strategy game in Mario.
Yeah, the thing I would be upset about is if that leads to this category being treated like this in future years, where there are enough fighting game nominees to fill out a full list, because Sifu should not be on this nomination. I think if you take best fighting as the only qualifier, sure. But then at that point, you're taking it too generally wise. And Elden Ring here, you've opened the category up too much.
Head combat.
Yeah.
You've opened the category up too much.
Well, and this is partially the problem with how they've worded the description for these categories, because they say designed primarily around head-to-head combat.
Well, they're doing that because
out of there entirely because
there were not 5 high-profile fighting games.
And they want to be able to fit 5 games in there, so they keep them kind of vague. But that's a problem because you need to be clear and concise. So when you say primarily, it's like mostly fighting games.
Because you can't compare Sifu on the same categories as the rest of these. That's the real problem here, is that Sifu cannot be judged on the same scale as other as these fighting game nominees.
Imagine watching a video and it's like, which game should you play more, Multiverses or Sifu? It's like,
What?
Yeah.
Should you
Dude,
play the
what?
JoJo's
almost-
fighting game, or should you play Sifu? Like, excuse me.
I almost think like we're like the descriptions are probably here because someone 10 years ago said the opposite of what I'm about to say and said we need more clear delineations of what the hell these gosh darn categories mean. And I'm here to say get rid of the descriptions because they don't mean anything. And if you can't glean exactly what the category is just by reading the title of it, then name the category something different or don't have it this year.
Well, I think you can keep the descriptions. My thing is just it has to be more clear cut and concise. It can't be this vague. The problem is they mean nothing when they're this vague. Because then you can throw
Exactly.
in whatever the heck you want. If you have a description, you can have it. Just be concise. Just be clear.
Yeah.
You
This
know.
is like the nth year
All
in a
right,
row. where
we
they've
got to
been
move
unwilling
on.
to do that.
And, well, we can do the names discussion at a future, but now we've entered the zone of repeats,
Yes,
which will be
get
a
ready.
common category.
Here we go.
So we're gonna be concise about a number of these categories, especially for games that appear multiple times. That doesn't mean we're not giving Elden Ring its due. It means that Elden Ring is going to show up many more times, and we'll continue to talk about it.
Yeah.
I think
Can you
in this
scroll up
list of
again for the
games,
title?
Well,
Can you scroll up again for the category, Brett? All right, best
this is
role.
best role
yeah,
playing.
rich player progression. Yeah, I think these are all good nominees. To be honest, I'm
Yeah,
not upset
sure.
about any of these. I do think Pokemon Legends Arceus and Live Alive maybe shouldn't win just because they're. I don't
I
think
wouldn't
they
put
fit
Pokemon
the
under
bill.
the character progression.
Exactly,
type,
and
like-
Live Alive is a weird one because it's a remake, and I'm always a little iffy about remakes winning these. So I'd be iffy on it, just because it's a remake, not because it's a bad game. In fact, I've quite enjoyed the bit of
But-
time I've played the demo.
Okay, but let's be honest here. We all know which one's going to win.
I don't actually think we do. I think this
Okay.
category
It's
might be
toss-up.
tighter. Because
Yeah.
this category, the way they've worded it is about progression, and I think Elden Ring does fit that really well. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, however, is one of the best reviewed JRPGs in
That's
many,
the
many
top,
years. It's
Yeah.
extremely, extremely good. And while I don't think Xenoblade will take like Game of the Year or anything, I think best role-playing game might be a solid fit for it. Triangle Strategy also reviewed incredibly well. Very, very well. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a surprise Triangle Strategy win here, even though it doesn't make perfect sense to me because it's in a weird category again of like, why was this not in the strategy category?
For a game that has
Right.
the title of its project title.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one. I think the real contenders here are Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Elden Ring. I'd be happy with either winning. I just hope if Elden Ring does win, it doesn't also win everything else because that's the most
That's-
boring outcome.
Yes, I want to say I am an Elden Ring enjoyer. Went that one year for I forget which movie awards ceremony this was, but Mad Max. It was the year that Mad Max Fury Road came out, and Mad Max won everything. And it was awesome because if I remember correctly, every other movie that came out that year was not worthy. So it made sense for Mad Max to just kick ass and win everything. That's one. If games sucked this year, then it would be an Elden Ring was
Yeah.
like the saving grace or whatever. I could see that's where you get it repeated all the time. That's the fan favorite clear winner, whatever. That's I
King of
understand.
the Hill.
This was a fan freaking tastic year for video games of a ton of times because indies were going crazy. You had these super long projects that took forever to make
Yeah.
by all different sizes of groups of people in both indie and AAA that are finally coming out all around the same time in this last 12-month period. And it's people for every single genre having a great time playing all this different stuff. And to see the same handful of games appear over and over and over again,
It's
It's
almost
just like,
infuriating.
it's so upsetting. It
Even if
really
we
puts
like
a damper
every
down.
single game that's there,
Yeah.
it's like there really should be some consideration here for different nominations.
And that's why I said earlier, that's why I said we all know what's going to win because what you all just said is like that's perfect logic and I agree with all of that, but here's the thing. We're not running the show. The people that are running
Yeah.
the show are often the ones that are making these decisions. And the people running the show are also the ones that were salivating when they were able to talk about Elden Ring
It did become the in-show meme, pretty much.
All right, so like, all I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's the right choice to make, but just like, I just like every time Elden Ring is in a category.
Well, yeah, the thing to remember about how the Game Awards are judged is they're judged by a group of industry people from games journalism. So it's a bunch of games journalists, and I presume
and I understand that.
Involved. But the thing to remember there is it's not necessarily the same people that are making the Game Awards decisions that are coming up with the nominations, but it is a committee brought together by the Game Awards. So there's a bit of wibbly room there. But you're absolutely right. This is just the way that we judge games is not the way that they are going to judge the games.
And listen, like, if Elden Ring does sweep every single category, right? It's not that it wouldn't deserve it. It's like you said, it just wouldn't be a very interesting show to watch.
Especially
because we've had such a good year.
Yeah.
I think it's the reason that we supported last year the idea of limiting the number of categories games can be a part of. Because, hey, even if you're not in the best role-playing game category, if you're a role-playing game and you're in the Game of the Year nominees, that should say something. Like, getting nominated for a category like this is a huge deal already. Yeah. Winning it is just the cherry on top, right? Because it's so hard to judge a game because it's all subjective. But we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, as we actually talk about the Game Awards when that rolls around, because we do need to keep moving. So let's pop on to the next category.
Oh, God, yeah.
Best action adventure.
We have some more of our...
the
usual suspects.
Yeah. Plague Tale Requiem, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Tunic.
Two indies in here, very happy to see that.
I just want to say, I like Horizon Forbidden West. All right, I think it's a fun game. I put in plenty of hours into it. I think there's a lot of excellent qualities about that game. I don't understand why it's in so many lists this year, because it just...
I think it's honestly
it's not
there's nothing on the level of it to compare it to, but at the same time, I really agree with you. Like,
it's again, not a terrible game. I had a lot of fun playing this game.
I started replaying Horizon this year, Wyatt, and I had to quit because of how often Aloy just constantly spoils all the puzzles to herself. I lost my mind.
Oh, you're gonna lose your mind playing God of War Ragnarok. They do the same thing.
Oh, I'm waiting.
No.
Because I've seen the complaints and I've heard that they looked into some kind of solution for it to have an option. But it is infuriating when games do that.
What I was going to say is, in this category and in any other category that Forbidden West shares God of War Ragnarok with, I haven't even finished Ragnarok yet, and I can already say it's a better game. Like,
damn.
I haven't put in as many hours. I haven't finished the game or the story, but I'm like, this is a much better game. And I just...
I mean, even just I've only played about 2 hours of God of War Ragnarok, and they were very good. So I'm very happy with it so far, even though I'm not very far in.
It's so good, and yeah.
Yeah, I do think there are a few oddball picks here. Horizon Forbidden West to me is an oddball pick just because I think compared to other games of similar quality, there is no way it can win.
Yeah.
It's just kind of stacked against it. Stray to me is odd because action adventure implies combat.
Yeah.
Stray is not a game that it actively discourages combat at all points, and I don't believe there is combat in Stray. I've played like 2/3 of that game, I think.
If this was just purely an adventure category, I feel like this pick would make much more sense.
I'm not upset that it's here, but it does confuse me. Tunic, I think, fits the category perfectly.
I guess
Plague
the
Tale
action
Requiem
is running away from the things that are like swarming you.
Yeah.
In some parts of Stray.
I mean, maybe, but I don't want to justify it for them. I think, to me, the thing that screams out to me here, we'll see if they do the thing they did last year where they just give this one game all the awards anyway and God of War Ragnarok sweeps, which I could see it being possible because it's a very good game from what I've played of it. I think this is a chance to give Plague Tale a bit of recognition because it doesn't really fit into anything else. So
I do have a question. The first game was a stealth game primarily, right?
They have combat. Yeah, they're stealth games primarily, but they do have combat.
Okay. Because from all the marketing of Requiem, it seemed like it was more combat heavy than Innocence. And
I think the idea is that your characters are more experienced now, and so your little brother with greater threats.
your little brother has his rat powers down.
Rat powers? Don't spoil anything. Quiet.
Yeah, we're not
I don't know
gonna.
anything.
Anything we
game's
say about
red.
Requiem will inherently be a spoiler because it's a sequel, so we're not gonna talk about. We can't talk about it. Yeah, that's this category. I think this is gonna go to God of War, Tunic, or Plague Tale. That would be my three for this, unless anyone has other thoughts.
Sounds
Best
about
action
right.
game. Oof.
Sifu.
This is another weird
Weird
one
for me.
Because
Weird
Sifu's
mismatch of
here
genres.
too. Why
This
it
is
here
one that I
while
really
fighting?
don't get because I think Call of Duty doesn't make sense for this.
No,
Like,
it doesn't.
It's not a.
We need to stop lumping in shooters with action games because it's such a
Huh.
a weird comparison and just doesn't
Yeah.
work because you can't judge them on the same categories at all. And it's not a knock to Call of Duty at all. It's just it doesn't fit this category. It really
different
shouldn't.
kind of game.
Bayonetta 3 should not win this, even though it's a very good game. Should not win this. It's the worst of the Bayonetta
But Ryan,
games.
look at that pose. Look at that pose.
Oh man,
I can't do
I see the
that.
pose. I think this is probably directly going to Sifu or Neon White. I don't really see other contenders here unless they decide to go the Call of Duty route, which I'll just be confused if they do.
I feel like people will get
I'll be
angry if they
mildly
pick Call of
disgusted
Duty.
if they do.
Yeah, I feel like people get angry, and I would agree too. It doesn't fit this category. It would be a weird pick if it did win, given how much I have been enjoying
But this is
it.
see the reason this is weird to me is that I think there's a lot of other games that could have filled this spot,
Mhm.
that aren't shooters or something else. I mean maybe. I get why. I think this is maybe they wanted to not use the same games in every category because this is definitely one that you could have also fit God of War and Elden Ring into.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say if that might be the reason why it's a different category. But yeah, I think there's other games that could have been here. Weird mishmash.
And I think there's enough. I forget if there is one, then COD really shouldn't be here. But if there isn't a shooter category, then I feel like they were counting all the really, really good single player indie shooters that have been coming out recently. That have been really popular too. I feel like you could absolutely have a category of that and at least have them be represented.
Over the past
weird.
like 4 or 5 years, the amount of like not just boomer shooters but quality boomer shooters that have come out, like it almost deserves like first person shooters now because there's so many good ones, especially on the indie level being made, almost deserves its own category at this point.
Yeah, this is
that's
one I would question why Ghostwire Tokyo is not here because this is where I would have put Ghostwire, as well as Dying Light, because like those are two big omissions.
And that's what I mean. There's just so many games that aren't represented. Oh my god.
Well, you know, speaking of that, I'm disappointed there's no Crunker category.
I know. So sad. So sad. No browser based.
Crunker category. Every single entry is Crunker.
Yes. All right. Best VR / AR.
I don't have much to say here because I'm not really in tune.
I don't think any of us
VR.
do.
Yeah.
But still.
I do occasionally play VR, but it is all entirely Beat Sabers.
A lot of people are in that same boat, I think. After the Fall, Among Us VR, Bone Lab, Moss, Book 2, and Red Matter 2.
I've heard a lot of good things about Bone Lab.
Yeah,
Moss looks really cute. For the few minutes that I'm able to watch
Moss
VR
1
video
was
content,
phenomenal.
Bone Lab looks very fun physics-wise and things like that.
I've never
After
heard
the
of
Fall
After
does
the
look
Fall.
very good, but
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think this is I don't think we can make a judgment on this just because none of us play enough of it. With the marketing force, Bone Lab is the only one I know has had significant marketing push, so that might win out of sheer marketing force alone. Not a knock on quality, just don't know.
We'll see.
Innovation
and accessibility. Huh.
All right, we got As Dusk Falls, God of War Ragnarok, Return to Monkey Island, The Last of Us Part 1, and The Quarry. This is a decent list.
Yeah.
As Dusk Falls, I would not have put here. I understand why it's here, but it's not a good fit.
Is anyone else surprised that because there was that game that was entirely like based on you being a blind person?
That was last year.
Playing a blind person. That was last year.
That was nominated last year, I believe.
I don't think, which everyone was really confused.
There are 2 Sony games on here, which I think almost, especially recently, almost always have a good fit here because they
they
really
do both have good menus.
And I know like remakes for Game of the Year nominations is bizarre. I kind of agree with you there. But Last of Us Part 1
Yeah, this
has,
category is different though, because this category is
Yeah.
not about the game. It's about
Well,
how
also-
do the accessibility options work with the game.
well, but also it would be getting an award for something that wasn't in the first game. It's a new edition,
Yeah.
right? And
The only reason I feel
that-
weird about Last of Us Part 1 here is that Last of Us Part 2, I want to say it won last year, didn't it?
I think so. That
which
sounds right.
deserved,
Which deserved,
entirely.
but this is Last of Us
Wait.
Part 1's accessibility is really just Last of Us Part 2's accessibility options.
Was it? No,
I
I
mean-
think Forza might have won.
Oh, Forza
I think
did
we
win
were,
because it had
Oh,
we
the,
were
it had the
freaking out
blind-
right.
because the car game won over the game
mute-
about
it had
you
the,
being a blind
sign language
person.
interpretation.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Give it to Last of Us Part 1.
that makes more sense now.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that then.
Because there's been a lot of hubbub around this game as a remake, its price point, whatever. Doesn't matter for this category. That accessibility's option, or that accessibility menu is like incredible. And
Also,
it's just
You know
as
what I
in-depth
just
as Part
realized, and
2's.
I'm now fuming at its lack of inclusion in any of the past categories. Metal Hellsinger.
oh,
That was
Action
this year?
or shooter. That was this year.
I don't know. I just thought it was on Game Pass for a while. I don't know.
No,
I
that,
just
it
knew
was on
a
Game Pass at
game.
launch.
Oh.
it came out very recently.
Yeah, it was just dream.
It's on the front page. Probably came out a little bit ago.
Okay, yeah. Now I'm angry about that too, Ryan. Crap.
Yeah, now I'm legitimately upset. That lack of inclusion for it.
Oh god.
All right, yeah, I think we've talked about accessibility enough. I do believe Return to Monkey Island has some cool options as well, but I haven't played it yet, so I'm not sure. Community
Best
support.
community
support.
Some familiar faces in this category that are here every year because they're the only games
yeah.
that generally get good community support. Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, and No Man's Sky. You know, I could
say No
I could
Man's
see any
Sky.
of these taking it except for Apex, and I'd be happy.
Yeah, I can.
I
agree
feel like with
that.
every update, people get more and more angry at Apex.
It gets worse.
Because
It
Apex,
gets worse.
when I hear about Apex, it's usually negative. When I hear about any of the others, it's usually a cool thing going on.
I
So-
believe I've stated this in a previous episode, but the fact that No Man's Sky has been releasing like what 3 or 4
Yeah.
updates per year for
Yeah.
the past however many years, and not a single one of them has been poorly received, right? The community has always been super happy whenever these updates come out, says a lot. Not just the volume of updates, but how extensive they are and how well received they are needs to be taken into consideration
Yeah.
as well.
Something my gut is telling me for some reason that Destiny 2 is going to win this year.
Really?
I think this because Destiny 2's last expansion was received so much better than any of the other ones that it's had the turnaround. And the problem with this category in particular is that it's the same 4 games every year are in here. You always have No Man's Sky, you always have Fortnite, and you always have Final Fantasy 14. So those games don't need to win again because they've won before. As much as I love Final Fantasy 14, at this point it's a given that it has the best community support of any game.
Yeah.
So just let it sit there in its laurels. It doesn't need to win more.
But it's also the one thing that sticks out in a strange way to me with Final Fantasy 14, and this isn't like something that completely disqualifies it from this position. The community letters are very weird.
Final Fantasy 14's community letters are amazing. They do live letters like once a month where the developers go through every new thing that's going to be added in extreme detail. It's very good.
You know what? You know what's the weirdest pick for the
The reason you may not have heard of them is that they're streamed in Japanese with English subtitles.
Yeah,
So they're not
that's-
as well heard about as other things. So I don't think they're a thing that you can easily read the way you can other games. But with patch notes, totally readable.
They would not be in the accessibility bit. Forget it
Yeah.
for the community letter.
The
know what
only
is-
thing with Final Fantasy 14 that might cinch it for it this year is the Island Sanctuary is a big deal to a lot of people to have the Animal Crossing thing in Final Fantasy 14. So I could see if some game critics have really been enjoying their Island Sanctuaries, that cinching something just because it's that type of like content that just isn't present in any of the other games. And it's fresh on the mind. But at the same time, I think this content is also a lot, or this award is a lot about a combination of the updates and community goodwill, which I think is No Man's Sky and Destiny 2 right now have been getting much better at that regard. No Man's Sky has been repeatedly every year since it released, but
One thing I will say that stands out to me here is that, like, on the surface, Fortnite seems like an obvious pick because it does get a ton of updates just in terms of like skins, content, whatever. But as Ryan and I have discovered when we played that game somewhat recently together, it's a it's almost a case of like there's too much now. Like there's been so many weird like updates, changes. It just there's so
It's not
much
even that
going
it's too
on.
much. It's too much that you can't catch up on because it's all gone. So you
Yeah.
walk in and you just don't understand what's happening.
It's-
We'll have to
it's
have a separate
FOMO to
Fortnite
the
discussion
max.
because we do need to move on. So
Yeah.
I this one not a easy category to call because they're all deserving of being there. Best mobile game.
Best mobile
Whoa.
game.
Oh,
The crowd goes mild.
Oh.
wow.
Apex Legends Mobile, Diablo Immortal, Genshin Impact, Marvel Snap, and Tower of Fantasy. I think
Can I
Marvel
pick
Snap is hands down gonna win. Zero question
Really?
over anything else
Marvel
here.
Snap. I've never even
Marvel
heard of this
Snap
game.
is an extremely well-designed card game. It just came out very recently.
Oh,
It is one of the best card games I've played recently, and it's also not super greedy. So
Oh.
I think it's gonna win very easily. I don't think there's really a lot of competition with the other games here because they're all a lot more narrow in their user base than Marvel Snap is. So I think this is zero question going to Marvel Snap.
I'll just believe you. I have nothing to say other than
Yeah.
that.
Qualifying that with I don't know anything about Tower of Fantasy, Apex Legends Mobile. Nothing about those two are
Yeah.
known to me. Genshin Impact I think isn't going to win because it's already been out for a long time. So Marvel Snap's new and the new hot thing.
Best
indie. Oh, Cult of the
got-
Lamb.
Oh yeah.
Cult of the Lamb, Neon White,
Neon White.
Sifu again. Well, Neon White again, Sifu again, Stray again, and Tunic again.
Huh.
This is just weird.
Ah.
These are
I
all
feel-
good games, but we don't need to repeat everything.
Where's
I really
Metal
think best
Hellsinger?
debut indie
Where's-
and best indie should be completely separated.
Yeah.
And what's
yeah.
there. I do think the glaring thing here is Cult of the Lamb being
I
present.
haven't played it, but from what I've heard, I think it deserves to win.
Yeah,
People really
I
like
would
it
give
a
this to
lot.
Cult of the Lamb just for being a really, really good version
It's on
of
my-
that type of roguelike.
it's on my list of games that is titled "Games I Will Play After I Finish God of War" because nothing else comes before
The
it right
ever-growing
now.
list.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
it's
backlog
right
is
up
growing,
there.
Wyatt.
It seems like a perfect Nintendo Switch game. Just like a good like 2D like top-down roguelike. Like that's what the
Yeah,
Switch
I've been
was
playing it on
built
the Steam
for.
Deck, and it's
One
very
where you
good.
don't have to worry about those frame drops.
Well, apparently it runs at 30 frames now, but they're coming out with a 60 FPS patch for it at some point, so whatever. But
I do think
heard
this is
very,
definitely
very
going to either Tunic or Cult of the Lamb. That'd be my two that are
Yeah.
competing at the high enough level for this category. Not any harshing to the other games here. I think they're all also very good. But Stray does not have a lot more going on to it than the 5-hour cat journey, which is very good, but for a best indie game, especially because I think the
Yeah.
debut indie should be separated, really think this should go to either Cult of the Lamb or Tunic. Again,
And-
Tunic though being debut indie, like this is why these categories get so weird.
yeah, and because oftentimes the games that get the most focus are the ones that have the most buzz, I would feel like Cult of the Lamb has had the most attention out of all the other ones.
Yeah,
here.
it's had a ton of buzz, but it's also been extremely well received, which is a rare
Yeah.
combo.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
I wish Signalis is on here somewhere. Anyway,
Yeah, I do
on to
wish
best
Signalis was on there.
ongoing.
That's
This
the
is the
exact
same
thing
category
as...
again, except for Genshin being swapped.
I don't think that's
Ah.
anything new. These are the same games as was in the.
The only thing that's missing here is No Man's Sky.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
what it was
yeah.
swapped
Yeah,
out with.
only thing that's been swapped out.
I,
Nothing
I
was
don't think we have to
swapped,
say
it was just
anything
removed.
Yeah, we covered all of this in the last one. All the stuff we said in the best community support is the same. So
Yeah.
yeah.
move
Keep
on.
moving.
Games
for impact, the eternally weird category that's always hard
Yeah.
to tell. A Memoir Blue, As Dusk Falls, Citizen Sleeper, Endling, Extinction is Forever, Hindsight, and I Was a Teenage Exocolonist.
I've heard of exactly one of these.
I haven't heard of
I've heard of 4 of
Exocolonist.
them.
My vote would be for Endling.
I have played As Dusk Falls completely. Toss it out. because not because it's bad, but because it doesn't fit the category at all.
Yeah.
There is very little in that game that would relate to this. Citizen Sleeper, I do know briefly what it is about, and I think it's a very good fit. I haven't played it though, so I'm not going to judge its quality. But it tackles a lot of like social issues in the idea of like you're a sleeper robot on a space station that's like overthrown the corporation.
Ooh.
And you're having to like adapt to normal life afterwards. Is that my brief? That could be a little bit wrong because the last time I heard about it was a while back, but it sounds very interesting, and I've heard it tackles some really unique issues. Indling is very, very good. It's a nice little game about your spirit foxes. Know nothing about Hindsight. I know nothing about Myanmar Blue. I've heard I Was a Teenage Exocolonist is good, but I don't know what it's about. That's my run for this category.
The title. It's right in the title.
Hey, the title's interesting. It's giving me manga light novel title flashbacks.
It's also Finji too.
What's
so you got that Tunic rep.
Oh.
Same publisher / dev. I don't know. That could be a mark of quality. Do we have anything else to add for this other than that we just?
The only thing I'll add on here is I think one of the things that's going to win this is either Citizen Sleeper or As Dusk Falls because they're on Game Pass and more of the critics will have played them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fortunately or unfortunately, but that's the truth. Best performance. We have oh my gosh. Okay, they have the title of the actual person. I was confused for a sec. I was like, this person's name isn't Horizon Forbidden West. We got Ashley Birch for Horizon Forbidden West. We got Charlotte McBurney for A Plague Tale Requiem. We got Christopher Judge for God of War Ragnarok. We got Men Engage. I'm gonna pray that I said that right for Immortality. And someone else can say that guy's name for God of War Ragnarok because I don't want to be the one.
Sunny
Good
Soldier.
job. That mispronounces
I
it.
assume so.
Yeah.
That could be wrong.
Okay. I'm gonna open up this conversation. I love Ashley Birch as a voice actor. I think she almost always does an incredible job. I've never been a huge fan of her performance in Horizon. It's very like breathy and strange.
That's done 100% down to voice direction, not to her.
Yes, not to her.
Weird decisions.
She's excellent in so many things, like Tiny Tina, for example. She kills
Life
that
is
character.
Strange. She kills it.
Life is Strange. So many good things. I just feel like Horizon is her weaker work, and that has nothing to do with her. The only other thing I want to say, Christopher Judge for God of War Ragnarok, completely deserved. He's fantastic. Sunny Soljic is a odd choice because I think, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I think the voice actor who voices Freya does a much better job.
Even just the one scene I've had those characters in the same room with, I agree with you. Though I do wonder how much of that is voice direction because Soljic is being directed to be like a moody teenager.
Yes, but I would also, and again, this is also another voice, like a voice direction thing, but I feel like he was better in the first game than he is here. And maybe that's there's a number of factors that go into that, but I just feel like I feel bad for not knowing her name, so I'm gonna look it up now. But I feel like she deserves to be here. If you're gonna have two people from God of War Ragnarok, she deserves to be here more slightly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I also think it's weird to have two people from the same game on this. I would have just left it to Christopher Judge because I do think it is odd to have two people that worked on the same game when there were a lot of narrative games released this year that could have had someone here. My personal pick for this is Immortality, Man Engage's job there, because Immortality is an FMV game. So her performance is much more involved. And the pitch for Immortality is it's about an actress who is immortal, kind of going through the decades, and you're like watching clips of her unreleased stuff to kind of piece together the story. Super cool. It's on Game Pass. She does a great job. So that'd be my oddball pick for this. Because I think otherwise Immortality doesn't necessarily fit a lot of other games categories super well because FMV games are just hard to categorize. But for voice performance, that is 100% the whole role of those games is to deliver a good performance. Though I wouldn't be upset at anyone. The only person I'd be upset for winning this is not even Ashley Birch. It's just Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah, again,
I don't want Aloy to win.
No.
Separate the two.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great voice actor, just not a fan of the direction she was given for that character.
Audio design.
This is a less weird category from
Yeah.
at least what I can gather.
I'm okay
we
with
got,
this category.
I've
we
played
got COD Modern
4.
Warfare 2. We got Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok again and again and again. Gran Turismo 7 again. Horizon Forbidden West again.
Like, if Gran Turismo 7 is going to win anything, it's going to be this, but I don't know if
makes
it deserves
sense.
it. Because it does have a very good car sounds, but I don't know if car sounds is enough compared to some of the other games
I
here.
think they focus mainly on technical accuracy, and I still think while that's pretty cool, I don't think that's always enough to win.
So I've played 4 of the 5 games on this list. The only one I haven't played
Yeah.
is Gran Turismo. I'm gonna say this: Modern Warfare 2 has excellent sound design. No matter what you want to say about that game
Yeah.
as a whole, the sound design is just like
Very good.
incredible.
And that's always been good for the
Yeah.
two more recent Modern Warfares. I think the original one, it probably feels like the original one's better just because it was newer, that there was like such cool
Yeah.
attention to detail with that. But
Yeah.
I feel like we
Um,
can discount Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West from this because they have good sound design, but nothing that
Nothing
is
is great.
outstanding. Whereas
think
I
it's
think
hard-
Modern Warfare 2, Gran Turismo 7, God of War Ragnarok, you can point to them and go, that's really good sound design for all of them.
And I think the other thing is too, it's hard for open world games to compete with like linear scripted experiences
Yeah.
where they have much more control over the audio.
For sure.
So I would give it to Modern Warfare 2 just because
I wouldn't be
it's
mad.
just so well done.
I'm happy
well
with
done.
pretty much anything except for Elden Ring or Forbidden West. And I like Elden Ring a lot, but I just don't think... I wouldn't point to audio design as its strong suit.
Yeah. All right, best score in music. Hey, there it is.
we go!
Found it.
Yeah!
Plague Tale Requiem again. Elden Ring again. God of War Ragnarok again. Metal Hellsinger finally.
Oh, yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 again, but for a lot less agains than the other one.
All right. I think this category is simple. We got 4 amazing soundtracks and then 1 phenomenal soundtrack that is built into
the winner.
gameplay. Like, if you don't give this to Metal Hellsinger, you're making some weird decisions because that's a game where the entire game loop revolves around the music. It's so good and it's all composed for the game.
Yeah. So I'm torn because like it should go to Metal Hellsinger first of all. I just want to get that off my chest. And I feel like because it's the only category that it's in, it's probably going to win.
I mean, we said that last year and that did not work out.
I hope it wins.
That's
so
true.
bad.
But in terms of what music resonates with me more, it's God of War Ragnarok because I am not like the biggest fan of metal music, and just God of War Ragnarok's soundtrack speaks to me more. But in terms of what game on this list deserves it more as a whole, Metal Hellsinger, definitely.
Yeah, I think this is a category where 4 of these games are competing on subjective taste. Metal Hellsinger is a game where the music is the gameplay.
It is a music game.
More so than even like a rhythm game, because
it is the music game.
I think that soundtrack, if even a little bit of it didn't work, if the BPM was off by a tiny bit in one song, if a single thing was off kilter, if the music didn't layer correctly, there's so many things that could go wrong, and none of it went wrong. That's not to say any negative things, but the other soundtracks here, because if Metal Hellsinger were not on this list, I'd probably give it to Xenoblade, because Xenoblade Yasunori Mitsuda is a legendary composer, and his work in Xenoblade 3 is some of his best. The way they have motifs running through all the songs is so good. God of War Ragnarok, I'm just not far enough. And Elden Ring, great music. It's an open world game, and that hurts the idea of motifs running through this stuff in a way that is, conducive to a like soundtrack telling a story. Haven't played Plague Tale Requiem. I think Metal Hellsinger is the clear pick here.
This is the one
Very
for me where
happy
if Elden Ring somehow wins this one, I will just be straight up mad because it's just not on the same level as the rest of the. I think you could probably replace it with a different game, and it would make more sense. I like the music in Elden Ring, but like
very few people are pointing to Elden Ring's soundtrack as the thing it should win an award for.
Yeah,
it deserves other things a lot more than this, to the point where I think it's taking the spot for something else that uses music better.
It's the same situation with audio design, right? Like, not that it's bad, it's just there are other awards.
Yeah, there's things that have done a better job.
Yeah.
Best art direction.
Ooh.
All
Elden
right,
Ring, God of War, Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Scorn, and Stray. I'm actually not upset at the repeats here because I do think these are the best picks from this year.
This makes sense. If you're going to repeat something, if you're going to use these repeats for anything, this is where it makes sense for all these.
Yeah. And this is also a category where I'm not upset to see Horizon Forbidden West here because that world is incredible.
So pretty.
And so well just
the only
designed.
reason, so scroll up a little bit, let me read the blurb for this just to see if I need to be mad. Okay. So I do need to be a little bit mad at Horizon Forbidden West. Not to say I think its artistic styling and animations are fantastic, but that calls out art direction. And the art direction of Horizon Forbidden West is at odds with the gameplay of the game in a way that really, really hurts it. The same thing happened in the first Horizon game. Man, you should not have to tap a thing on your head to highlight the world in triangles to see what you can climb. Bad decision. So, and that is because of the art style is so bright and poppy that you can't tell what's going on.
When it can also get, it can also get like with some of the like robot designs and also some of like the robotic interiors of buildings, it can get very visually noisy.
It's always visually noisy. It is not a moment where it isn't visually noisy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'd be a little upset of that ones. I still think if you're talking about like design and creature direction and artistic like capabilities, that team is phenomenal. But they just need a stronger handle on a design language to not run into the same issues they've been running into.
Or just like games. maybe just like reined in a little bit.
Yeah, just rein back a tiny bit. We look at Ghost of Tsushima. You don't need to be the best visuals. You just need to have clarity in what you're looking at. That is also good looking. In Elden Ring.
Brett, thoughts on baby paste?
I am glad that baby paste is being represented where baby paste belongs. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think Scorn belongs in any of the categories. I don't agree with how much people dislike the game because I think it is a very good game at what it does. But there's not a gross out category. There's not an atmospheric category. There's not a puzzle category.
Is there not a horror category?
There might not be.
Actually, yeah, there really weren't a lot of horror games this year that came out or high profile.
Not at least big profile ones. Rest in peace, Ignalis. Scorn is this is the one place where it belongs because no other game looks like that and is also
no one's gonna be upset if Scorn wins.
I kind of want it to. As much as I genuinely think that Elden Ring is one of the prettiest games I've ever played because it does the Tsushima thing about as good as Tsushima and in some places even better because it can elevate itself to fantasy and is not held back by realism like almost at all.
And the Eternal Cities are the most visually striking things I think I've ever seen in games.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. That said, I also want to give a shout out to God of War Ragnarok because I'm not very far in that game. Wyatt, you are going to know immediately what I'm talking about. First boss fight. The tree that happens during the fight. Oh my god, is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's so cool. It's such a great visual direction.
It is also, and this may not be 100% like in line with the category, but is also we've talked about this before. We have seen a lot of interpretations of like just the Viking era and Viking mythology in video games. This is my favorite interpretation of it, just from like a visual design standpoint. It's so good.
Yeah.
I'll
just say
definitely
Stray
deserves to be here
because Stray is legitimately the thing that I think it has most going for it is its visual design. So yeah, good category all around. I wouldn't be upset with anything. I do think Forbidden West is the odd egg out here, but not to a degree where I'd be upset if it wins. I'll just be a little bit. I'll just be a little bit miffed that they didn't consider the gameplay ramifications, the art style they went with. All right.
Best narrative.
Some more repeats.
Yeah. We got Plague Tale again, Elden Ring again, God of War again, Horizon again, and Immortality not again because it was just the voice actors last time. So I'll let it slip just this once. I mean the thing is that I'm not sure if any game doesn't deserve to be here necessarily, but it's just the same thing where it's like repeats again and again and again.
Narrative development.
This would have been argue against
Forbidden West
as well.
Yes,
I feel like this is the place that you fit a Signalis.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. The only thing that I think could have really upset me with this category is if Last of Us Part 1 was here.
That would be so cruel.
As much as I love the story of that game, oh my god, I'd be so
I'm someone who
upset.
actually bought that game, and I would be like, yeah, no, this is dumb.
Yeah, I'd just be upset. I would be happy with any of these winning. I haven't played Plague Tale. I haven't played Immortality. But Elden Ring is the weird one.
Well, you know what? I would say that Horizon Forbidden West does not have a good enough story to be here.
Yeah, I did
so
want to
too. From what you've told me about the story, it's
there's some really cool ideas and some cool events on paper that happen, but the ending alone just made me so angry because of just how nothing it was, that like it really deflated everything else it had going for it, in my opinion. It was one
so
of
we'll
those
just pretend
really...
we traded that out for Signalis.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I've got my pick here. I've got my champion. Let's give Brett his champion. All right.
I'll take the pity pick. I will. Worth pointing out by this point, I think we're in the category now. People whining about Elden Ring being here. I don't know. I'd do something else than read a completely straight line linear narrative for once and try playing a video game.
Yeah,
so
I think Elden Ring is
this.
A complicated pick. So Brett, I did watch the video that you sent. The video by Zuli the Witch, who does some phenomenal From Software short, concise analysis videos and like cool Easter eggs and whatnot. Did a video about why Elden Ring would be considered in Best Narrative, because a lot of people were really confused at that. Which is justifiable, because I do think it presents its narrative in a way that is not accessible to the majority of people. And I don't know if Brett and I are fully on the same agreement with this as to whether or not Elden Ring is worthy of winning, because I do like Elden Ring a lot, but I think some of the item storytelling things about Elden Ring fall apart when looked under the lens of gameplay, because you can see the areas where the story was kind of tossed aside for gameplay to make sense, of like, why are there 20 Crucible Knights? And why is one of them just on a random pillar that I can only get to from a portal from this one thing? That doesn't make any sense. And I don't... I think moments
so
like
old
that
it fell apart, Ryan, and the only way you can get to it now is with the portal.
Yeah, but then why does the portal... See, that's the only thing that gets me. So I agree with everything about like the narrative being deserving of this, but I think there's some gameplay stuff that just... I don't think it's as consistent as a God of War or Immortality would be, but I'm not upset if Elden Ring wins. Like I like Elden Ring's story a lot, so I got no issues.
And so, for context, I haven't seen the video. I want to, because it seems like a video that would interest me quite a bit. But I've also been on record as saying this is not a form of storytelling that I'm a huge fan of. Not because I think it's objectively bad. It's just not for me, right?
It doesn't grab you.
Yeah. It doesn't grab me.
Totally makes sense.
But I do think it totally deserves to be here, because it's a different form of storytelling and it isn't a linearly told story like God of War Ragnarok doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to be here.
Yeah.
Because in that section of time where I did play it, right, and I was picking up what lore I could, with also my friend right next to me telling me what he had also learned on his travels. I think it's very fascinating, and I think it really scratches that itch for people who do like that form of storytelling. So it more than deserves to be here. And just because it's different, or like a different kind of storytelling, I don't think, that it excludes it from here at all. It's definitely more deserving to be here than Horizon Forbidden West, in my opinion.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So.
All right, move on. We're getting in the final two big leagues.
This looks familiar. Best game direction.
Wait, you changed the page?
I know, right?
It's
like they just flipped around the things a little bit. Elden Ring again, God of War Ragnarok again, Horizon again, Immortality again, not saving it this time, and Stray again.
This one we tossed Stray and Horizon in the garbage for this one.
Yeah.
They're as much as I like Stray a lot, the game direction of that game is to tell a cool story. If that's the limit of your game direction, you shouldn't be up for the game direction award. You should be up for the best art direction and all the other narrative if you wanted to.
Yes.
Game direction is not the right fit for Stray.
I've gotten to the point where I just can't talk about any of these categories because I have no experience in any of the games.
That's
It
a
happens.
really big problem of having so few games be in the top echelon of like
Yeah.
12 tiers or whatever. Is because if you haven't played any more than one of them or none at all, it's just like, oh well, my friend told me this one was cool. I guess that's my connection to the whole like last hour of the Game Awards now. It's just
Yeah.
so weird.
Oh, they are probably going to stretch out
Two-
these last 3 to 4 categories.
You know it.
Or
To throw my 2 cents in, I think one thing that should come across when you're playing a game that indicates good direction is confidence, right? Like
Yeah.
when you have a good sense of like these developers were proud and confident of what they were making, not only does it show in the quality of the game, but you like feel it, right?
would you
You're like,
Because
say
game direction is about vision. It's about the team having a shared vision and achieving that vision.
well,
And I
speaking about-
think a lot of the games that up in this list have done that.
Yes.
But speaking about confidence, Wyatt, would you say that a mark against that might be the character telling you the solution to a puzzle over and over again?
That's a fair point. That is a very fair point. Something that they are
Yeah, I
they
think
do want to fix.
that's what this comes down to
Um,
me personally. So I think the simple solution for God of War Ragnarok, just add a mute Atreus button. Don't give me hints toggle. Or you know what?
Child.
Quadruple the length of the timer. Maybe even 10 times it, because it's not enough.
Yeah.
It is the one puzzle that I did was not a puzzle because he just told me what to do as soon as I walked into the arena.
Oh.
Like,
Oh no.
I'm not very far in that game, but it was already my experience. I think, man, that needs to change because you have some really cool puzzle designs, at least in the first game. So let them actually be puzzles.
So to be honest about the puzzle thing, it never bothered me because I always found the solution to the puzzle before they spoiled it for me, in my experience.
See, that's so why the reason it happens to me is because I always, as soon as I'm in a room in a game, will go check every other corner of the room
Yes,
before I do the thing.
Exactly.
That's
You
fair.
don't want to miss
That's
anything.
So that is my problem. Is I see the solution first, but then before I do it, because I'm going around looking through, and I generally find like a chest or something hidden when I do that.
You can find hidden
they tell
chests.
me
You
what to
can
do.
find secrets and things because you don't know if you're like you. There could be a possibility that you're never going to be able to get back to that area again for some reason.
Yeah, and I think we do have the interesting dichotomy here of God of War maybe does that too much, Elden Ring maybe doesn't do it enough. With some
Yeah.
quests of like, there are certainly quests in Elden Ring that I don't know how you would ever figure them out without a wiki. Because people just show up in locations that you would never go to at that point in the game unless you were looking it up or just stumbled across it because you were going and clearing area you didn't do. So I don't think this is a situation where like Elden Ring is better because Elden Ring has the same issue but the reverse for some things. Just a lot of that is From Software adapting to an open world.
Yeah, and I would also say that outside of the puzzles, because I do agree in that specific instance, but outside of the puzzle hints, I think it does exude that confidence
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
as much as 2018 did. Like a lot of the set pieces are so well designed, and just the fact, like if we're talking about direction, just the fact that God of War Ragnarok and 2018 are able to keep this look of a one-shot camera for the entire game. The only time the camera cuts is when you die and you like go to a loading screen. That is it. Even the loading screens, you're still in the game and it's still one camera.
If there was like a cinematography award for games, ooh.
God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
I do think. Oh, go ahead.
No, go for it. No, go for it.
I was just gonna say, I think what this category will probably end up being is whoever doesn't get Game of the Year, because we all know either Elden Ring or God of War is gonna get Game of the Year before we even see the nominees. We know that, so one of the two will get Game of the Year. I think the one that doesn't will get this award, which is
because
I don't know if that's correct.
It's a spoiler.
Yeah,
basically.
I think in a vacuum, my vote would be for Elden Ring, just because of the confidence to blatantly ignore every open world trend of recent years is exactly what I want from a game. And I think game direction fits that more than Game of the Year. But at the same time, if Elden Ring does win Game of the Year, I think God of War should get this, because God of War absolutely is a phenomenal achievement that deserves, I think, just as much as Elden Ring, this award. All right, moving on.
You got the
last
big
one.
Oh boy.
Oh, we have 6
Game of the
things in
year.
this,
We
in
have
this category.
one
Things,
surprise
and they're all
nomination.
repeats.
And then a ton of repeats.
Oh.
Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Again, can we just take Horizon Forbidden West and just toss it out of here immediately?
Okay,
Yes,
so
we're
just
replacing
get
it with
rid of it.
Signalis. We're replacing it with Signalis. Just
Sure.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not even saying it's a bad game. It just doesn't deserve to be here.
Yeah, we've talked about Horizon Forbidden West enough, so we'll just skip to talk about that. Stray also, I mean, Stray's great. This is like
It's a
throwing
stretch.
a puppy into a den of wolves.
It's true. It's true. That poor thing is going to be dust.
Take it out. Just pull it
Like,
from the
literally a
competition.
2-day-old puppy and just plop it right in.
Everyone loves the puppy, but the vicious wolves are gonna eat it.
They do not like the puppy.
Oh, no.
It is
Xenoblade
weak.
Chronicles 3, great game. There's no way it's Game of the Year.
It
God.
feels too niche compared to the rest of the nominees.
And like
So,
even as
Ryan.
someone who loves Xenoblade, I'd rather give it to Elden Ring.
So why did I have a question for you three. Why exactly did they put 2 to 3 games that are just purely fodder in here?
Well, Xenoblade is not fodder. So Xenoblade is not fodder because I think it is, if you are not considering Elden Ring and God of War, it is the next tier down. It is just one step below. But I think there is a solid step there. There's like a full, you gotta step up the step ladder to get to God of War and Elden Ring. And it's just one rung below, along with every other game this year, because nothing else is competing on that level. That's it. That's the guide. I think that's just. Otherwise, there would be 2 games here.
yeah.
Legitimately.
Our finalists.
Be honest.
I think the only real oddball here is just Stray. Stray, I think, just really stands out as not being on the same level as any of these games.
Well,
in terms
I
of
would
like
say
a full Game of the Year contender.
I guess, but again, like I would say even more so Horizon Forbidden West because it's just not anywhere near the quality level of like any of these
Yeah.
other picks here.
Mm.
Okay. I've played the 2 real contenders here. Okay, which is Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, right? I have not finished either. There's only one game on this list that I really want to finish, and that's God of War Ragnarok. After my 10, 12 hours of time with Elden Ring, if it wins Game of the Year, which I am just putting my foot down, it's gonna win. That I 100% it's
Jeez.
gonna win, right? Yeah. I would not be upset at all, even if it's not spiritually my game of choice. If it did win, I would not be upset with that
Yeah.
at all.
And I think I'm the same as you, but the reverse of I will finish God of War because it's a much shorter game than Elden Ring is. But Elden Ring to me is the clear thing that I would go to if I had to make a choice about what game from this list to go back and play. Instantly Elden Ring. In fact, I am planning to re-download Elden Ring and purchase it again so I can play it on my computer with mods.
Oh boy.
And play more Elden Ring as soon as I'm through God of War. So
Would you be angry if God of War won?
oh, absolutely
Would
not.
you be upset?
No, I'd be totally fine with it. I would be angry if God of War won both Best Game Direction and Game of the Year.
Yes. Well, in either case, if one won both. If
Yeah,
one
I think this is
was
really a
awarded
situation where
both.
these two should trade these awards because they both are on
Yeah.
almost equal standing to me.
Yeah.
To the degree where I almost think that Elden Ring should win Game Direction over Game of the Year just because I think Game Direction is a stronger link to what Elden Ring represents for AAA, but I would not be upset at it winning Game of the Year because I think Game of the Year functionally is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Practically
feels
speaking,
like-
they are nearly the same award.
Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
it feels
Game
like
of the
first and
Year
second place.
Direction.
maybe Game of the Year is a bit more all encompassing than Direction.
Yeah.
But it's not far off.
Which is why I think it would still be fine if it won Game of the Year, because I do think the art, the sound, the music, the visual design of everything in Elden Ring is still competing on the Game of the Year level. Same as God of War Ragnarok. So, yeah, I think this could go either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've only played Elden Ring as in terms of games on this list, but I mean, I got mad respect for God of War because I have a ton of friends that really like it, and from what I've seen, it looks really really cool. Um, so I I only problem I have with any of the games winning is if they were to just sweep like a bunch of categories
Yeah.
in a row. I don't want to see either Elden Ring or God of
Please
War Ragnarok.
let
do
the thing
that.
that gets Game of the Year just get Game of the Year.
It's a game like 1 or 2 times is fine. It makes like if you want to do art direction for Elden Ring or God of like that, it makes sense. It makes sense given the categories
Yeah.
we have or whatever. But yeah, for me, I mean, even in terms of all the other games that I personally played this year, Elden Ring is all the way at the top because it just does so many things that a lot of other games struggle to do correctly at all,
And
and
just
it
the
doesn't do
post-launch
everything.
support has been
Yeah,
phenomenal. Like
like
FromSoft usually is
every
not this degree of balancing post-launch and like actually improving things based on feedback. The
yeah,
goal to separate PvE and PvP. I mean, never been done before.
mind blowing,
Absolutely hasn't been
That's
done before. It's always the right solution.
And you know what
Yeah,
I will
it's
say too, and maybe this is more a comment that I should have had in game direction, but at the end of the day, God of War Ragnarok is a sequel, which
that's true
and a
too.
sequel that like while it makes a lot of good improvements, does stick quite closely to the formula of the last game. I think
Yeah.
it makes a lot of good improvements, but nothing that is like earth-shatteringly new and completely changes the format, right? And in terms of judging game of the year and direction, I think that's an important thing to point out.
Yeah, I also think
Yeah, I
Elden
think
Ring,
too.
you could use the word evolution with Elden Ring of not just a From Software evolution, but an evolution of open world
Yeah, definitely.
and showing that there is more than one way to do open world games that people will
Yeah.
respond to and love.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and it's
I
not
think
saying,
also
again, not every game needs to be Elden Ring, but it's showing that there is
No.
another path to making open world games that is not just the same thing.
Yeah. And it's also not to demote God of War Ragnarok either. Like
Yeah, because it's a very
it's
different type of game. It's not, they're not
yeah.
comparable on a lot of degrees.
But it is something to keep in mind is that it does use a formula that is familiar because it is a sequel. And that's not a bad thing
Yeah.
at all. It's just it's something to be taken into consideration where it's not an evolution of 2018 to Ragnarok. It is a very good like improvement with some
Mhm.
great additions, but it's not it is following a well-trodden roadmap, a very good one, and one that I don't think anyone really wants it to deviate much from, but it still is.
the evolution would be from God of War 3 to God
To
of War 4.
2018.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
straight up evolution. But
Yeah.
the thing that I have against Elden Ring here is that we've been harping on the repeats. From Software has already very recently won Game of the Year for Sekiro, which is a completely different game than Elden Ring. Even though there's some like similar mechanics, you cannot consider them to be the same type of game at all,
Yeah.
or else you are
I would
insane.
not say that's a problem with them. I'd say that's a
But
problem with other people not stepping up.
oh yeah, but I'm
Other
just saying that
games
if
not.
this is
Yeah.
something that an avid I don't know Twitter user would point out, and in terms of
And
trying
Sekiro
to
also won. I want to say, what is Sekiro? 2018? It's
Also, didn't God of
2019, I
War
think.
didn't God of War win 2018?
Did it?
2019.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Because God of War
I
was
think God of War did
2018, right?
win.
Oh God!
God of War was
What is
2018.
everyone else?
God of War was 2018. Won 2018.
Huh?
Sekiro. So we're really at the same situation either way because
Never mind then.
and Ring
Huh.
have both won.
Well, we're
Crap.
kind of on the same plane
Oh,
on
hey,
that
clear
one.
that up then.
you know what? Then we give it to Signalis.
I think that's a good spot to end, to be honest. On that note, we're gonna go to shoutouts because we're running long. It's time to wrap
Oh
up.
boy, yeah.
We had a good discussion. We'll have another good discussion when this show actually rolls around. Next week, Game Pass Games Club. We're going to talk about the games that we picked this month for Game Pass Games Club. It'll be a fun time. All right. Who wants to go first for shoutouts?
I'll go first.
Go for it.
All right. This is a God of War Ragnarok thing. It is a throwaway line of dialogue that I thought was
Please,
hilarious.
not a spoiler.
It's not a story spoiler. This is one of those like you're traveling around in the open world and Mimir wants to
Yeah.
tell you a story.
Oh, Mimir, wonderful.
I think we're fine, right? He he asks Kratos about one of the things along in his journey, and he alludes to the fact that PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale is canon, which is hilarious.
my God.
Really funny. I
It's
fought in many
so
tournaments.
funny. Yeah, and he's like, "Is it true, brothers? You fought a rotund princess and a rogue and all this?" And he's like, "No comment."
That's
It's
great.
really funny.
I will not discuss this issue.
Wonderful.
Dude,
All
I
right.
laughed so hard.
Who else is ready?
I go. I for the first time recently just finished the original Final Fantasy VII. And that's a heavy game for a lot of people, and I totally respect the fact that it is extremely overrated but still very good. When it's not a shout out, I'll talk about it more. It makes it sound like I didn't enjoy it. I just had a lot of nitpicks that developed into problems. But the last 45 minutes of game is like absolutely incredible.
I'm gonna have to finish it now, Brett.
Awesomeness. It's worth it. It's worth playing through.
I
want to have.
I want to say I only have a few hours left actually. 'Cause I'm pretty
It's not
deep
super
into
long.
it. So
Yeah. I want to have a one-on-one against you, Ryan, where we discuss
Oh,
Final
yeah.
Fantasy VII and why it's good and why it's bad.
Alex, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Shout out to I was recently digging through things to find files on an old computer. And I found one of my tablet readers with what used to be my favorite childhood book trilogy on it, the Eddie Dickens trilogy.
Wonderful.
Nice.
All right. Well, my shout out is to the 40-something hours of Elder Scrolls analysis videos that I've watched in the past couple of weeks. Because I went down the rabbit hole of watching the 20-hour Patrician video, and it was very good. And not actively watching, but listening while I'm doing other things.
A quick retrospective.
Which then led to me watching his video on Oblivion, which led to me watching his original video on Morrowind, which led to me watching someone else's video on the entire Elder Scrolls franchise, which led to me then watching another analysis of Oblivion, and it's gonna keep going.
The time.
Well, because it's while I'm playing Skyrim,
Sure.
or doing other things, or doing dishes or something, you know.
Have you seen the Daggerfall storyline analysis?
No, but I'm sure I will now. Now that you've said it. All right,
Wonderful.
well, that's the end of the show. As always, podcast 7 a.m. Eastern Time on the podcast platform of your choice, Tuesday mornings. That's it. That's the end of the show.
Good job.
Have I been bobbing my head to
video
music
games.
people can't hear?
Just complete silence for the rest of the outro here.
Yes.